Chapter 2491. Saving a person after Nyetian and the others left the Grand Hall. One of the warriors led them to a courtyard. "Everyone, you can stay here for the time being," the martial artist said politely before turning around and leaving. "Let's go in, Ouching," Nyetian said, nodding. Then he, Jun Ouching, and the others entered the courtyard. Jun Ouching and the others were all tired, so they picked their own rooms and went to rest. Nyetian stood there alone in the courtyard, a very nervous expression on his face. He was very curious about what Violet Bamboo Mist was talking about when she mentioned the path to the heavens. He knew that the reason Violet Bamboo Mist had asked him to join the seventh sect was because of the path to the heavens. For the sake of the path to the heavens, Violet Bamboo Mist had dropped the matter of the Dew Rainbow, which went to show how important it was to her and to the seventh sect. But considering that Nyetian knew nothing about the path to the heavens, he couldn't help but feel a bit worried. Chuckling, Fat Cat said, "There's no point in worrying too much, Nyetian. Why don't you focus on absorbing the power of the Dew Rainbow? That will help you achieve a breakthrough as soon as possible." Nyetian was stunned at first, but then he laughed and said, "The Rainbow Dew is indeed a good thing. After I took it, not only did I completely dissolve the curse, but I also felt that my martial body became much stronger and even my strength improved. I'm confident that I'll be able to absorb the power of the Dew Rainbow within 3 months and reach the peak paramount god level." "Yeah," Fat Cat said, nodding her head. Obviously, she had complete faith in Nyetian. If anyone else had heard Nyetian's words, their jaws would have dropped to the ground. To reach the peak paramount god level in 3 months was nothing short of monstrous. After all, Nyetian had only recently become a late paramount god. It was obvious that the Dew Rainbow truly did contain incredible power, which was why Nyetian was so confident that he would be able to improve his strength. At this moment, Nyetian suddenly sensed that someone had come. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes. However, in the next moment, he sensed a familiar aura. The corner of his mouth twitched and a smile appeared on his face. Then, 3 silhouettes appeared. It was the 3 Zunzun. 3 reverends, so it's you guys. Nyetian looked at the 3 reverends and smiled. "Nyetian, the 3 of us have taken the liberty to come here. Have we disturbed you?" Supreme Moon laughed heartily and stepped into the small courtyard. "The 3 venerable ones are too kind." Nyetian smiled and gestured for the 3 venerable ones to sit down. He also sat on the stone platform in the courtyard. The 3 venerable ones looked at Nyetian, looking like they wanted to say something but were hesitant to do so. "3 venerables, just say what you want to say." Nyetian couldn't help but smile when he saw this scene. "Nyetian, if that's the case, we won't stand on ceremony." Supreme Moon nodded and said, "Actually, we are here to ask you for a favor." "What kind of favor?" Nyetian was dumbfounded. Then he said with a smile, "In half a month, the path to heaven will open. The 3 of us would like to go with you, but I'm afraid our Lord won't agree. So, we would like to ask you to tell our Lord about this." Supreme Moon coughed and said embarrassedly. Nyetian was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the 3 venerable ones to come to him for this. After pondering for a moment, Nyetian said with a smile, "Venerable lords, the 3 of you are far more important to the sect master than I am. If the sect master doesn't allow you to go, even if I beg the sect master, it might not be of any help, right?" Yes, as long as you, Nyetian, say it, our Lord will definitely agree." Supreme Star was an impatient person, so he said with a smile. Nyetian frowned, and his face looked even weirder. He said with a smile, "Do I have such a great influence in our Lord's eyes?" "Yes." Supreme Star nodded and said suddenly, "Our Lord is counting on you to save people. Of course, he will value your opinion." "Save people? Save who?" Nyetian was dumbfounded. He was confused. Didn't Purple Bamboo Mist ask him to participate in the path to heaven? Why did it become saving people? "Nyetian, my friend," Supreme Star was too excited and said something wrong. Supreme Moon's face changed. She stared at Supreme Star and explained hurriedly. Right. Supreme Star reacted immediately. He said with a smile, I was too excited and said something wrong. Nyation twitched the corner of his mouth and frowned even harder. Supreme Star was really smart. He admitted that he had said something wrong. Three Reverends, what is going on? Nyation asked in a deep voice, his face darkening. Supreme Sun and Supreme Moon stared at Supreme Star at the same time. The latter's forehead was covered in a cold sweat. Cough, cough. Supreme Moon coughed and said, Nyation, my friend, it's not that we don't want to tell you. It's just that this is related to our Lord. We really can't tell you. If you don't want to tell me, please go back. Nyation frowned and replied coldly. This. The three Reverends' faces froze. They looked embarrassed. Three Reverends, if you want my help, tell me the truth. Nyation glanced at the three Reverends and said, Since I promised our Lord that I would listen to her arrangements for this month, I will try my best to do whatever she asks me to do. I will not refuse. The three Reverends frowned and looked at each other for a long time. They were obviously discussing. After a while, the three of them finished discussing. Supreme Moon smiled awkwardly and said, Nyation, my friend, if that's the case, we will not hide it from you. We think our Lord asked you to participate in the path to heaven because she wants to save someone. Save who? Nyation frowned and asked. Someone who is very important to our Lord. Supreme Moon's eyes flickered and he hesitated again before he said, That person is our Lord's husband. Lord's husband? Nyation was stunned again and said, Could it be that our Lord's husband is imprisoned? Yes. Supreme Moon nodded and said, And he is imprisoned on the path to heaven. What's going on? Can you explain it to me? The more Nyation listened, the more confused he became and asked with a puzzled expression. He thought that the path to heaven was some kind of competition. Why did it sound like a prison from the three Reverends' words? Nyation, my friend, you will know what the path to heaven is very soon. Supreme Moon did not explain much, but said, What you need to know is that the person our Lord wants to save is very dangerous. It's okay if she can't be saved. But if she can't be saved, our Lord will be in trouble. Nyation was stunned. He suddenly felt that his brain was not enough. Purple bamboo flowing mist wants to save someone. Why is it a good thing if she can't be saved? Nyation, my friend, you don't know this. If our Lord really does save her, I'm afraid the seventh house and the main house will turn against each other. Supreme Moon frowned and said seriously, Why? Nyation frowned even more. Chapter 2492. Chapter 2492. Chapter 242, Not Qualified. Nyation was even more confused when he heard what the Moon Supreme said. He could not understand why the Lord of the Wanzhong Mountain would imprison Purple Bamboo Tempest's husband. Judging from Purple Bamboo Wolf 7's name, he seemed to be from the same clan as Purple Bamboo Tempest. Moon Supreme, may I know the relationship between Purple Bamboo, Wolf 7, and the Lord? Nyation asked after he calmed down. Brother and sister. The Moon Supreme looked upset and nodded. Brother and sister, Nyation exclaimed and was stunned. He was wondering why Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 was making Purple Bamboo Tempest the Lord of the Seven Clan since he had imprisoned her husband. He did not expect Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and Purple Bamboo Tempest to be siblings. In that case, this matter was even stranger. If Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 was Purple Bamboo Tempest's brother, why would he imprison her husband? After all that fuss, weren't they a family? Zizhu Xin, the lady you saw earlier, is Miss Zhong Nu, the Moon Supremacy added. Nyation was stunned and recalled what had happened in the basilica. He had felt that the relationship between Purple Bamboo Tempest and Zizhu Xin was a little strange. It turned out that there were so many things going on between them. It seemed that Purple Bamboo Tempest hated her brother so much that she did not treat Zizhu Xin well. After a while, Nyation became cold and asked with a frown, Moon Supreme, you want to go with me because you're worried that something might happen to the Lord, right? Yes. The Lord nodded and said, The Lord and Lord Patriarch are from the Purple Bamboo clan. The three of us watched them grow up. We don't want to see them kill each other. Nyation nodded and asked, The three honorables, are you going to stop the Lord from saving the Lord? I don't know. The Moon Supreme shook his head and smiled bitterly. It's complicated. We'll have to take it one step at a time. The corner in Etienne's mouth twitched slightly. So there is such a secret behind this. Thank you for telling me. I will ask the sovereign to let the three of you go together. Thank you, little friend Etienne. Hearing Etienne's reply, the three venerable ones bowed in unison to express their gratitude. Three honored ones, this is my first time in the frozen ruins. I have some questions to ask the three of you. Etienne nodded with a smile. Etienne, my little friend, just ask. As long as we know, we will not hide anything. The moon Zun smiled and replied. Following that, Etienne asked the three Supreme some questions and learned a lot about the frozen ruins. After a while, the three venerables left, and Etienne prepared to enter his room to rest. But at this moment, another visitor appeared. Miss Zijou, why are you here? Etienne saw Zijou Xian's silhouette outside the small courtyard and asked in confusion. Zijou Xian slowly walked over with a smile on her delicate face. She said, Etienne, I will be leaving soon. I came to say goodbye to you. Thank you for saving my life. Miss Zijou, you are too kind. Etienne faintly smiled, his expression calm. Previously, Etienne did save Zijou Xian's life. However, at that time, he did not know Zijou Xian's identity. He did not expect that the person he saved was the daughter of the 10,000 Mountain faction. Etienne, are you going to participate in the path to heaven? Zijou Xian looked at Etienne and suddenly asked. Yes. Etienne bitterly smiled and said, I had no choice. I will also participate in the path to heaven. We will meet again very soon. Zijou Xian chuckled happily and said, If we meet again on the path to heaven, you have to go easy on me. I will. Etienne smiled and nodded. The two chatted for a while more before Zijou Xian left. Gazing at Zijou Xian's back, the corner of Etienne's mouth rose into a faint smile as he thought to himself, I wonder what the path to the heavens will be like. The journey to the heavens would begin in half a month, and Etienne felt an indescribable sense of anticipation. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. At this moment, the huge square of the seventh sect was bustling with people. Etienne and the others appeared at the center of the square. Next to Etienne stood Jun Aoqing, Yuji Wushuang, and Yu Qingqi. The three of them would also participate in the path to heaven with Etienne. After a while, Purple Zhu Xian appeared. At the same time, the three venerable ones and the elders of the seventh sect also appeared. Under Etienne's strong request, the three venerable ones and Purple Zhu Xian would participate in the path to heaven. Etienne, are you guys ready? Purple Zhu Xian walked over and asked Etienne. I'm ready, Etienne said with a faint smile, his face filled with confidence. Kid, the path to heaven is not an ordinary competition. It's a competition where the genius martial artists of dozens of branch sects will compete together. At this moment, Huang Yuk walked over with a cold smile on his face. He looked at Etienne with disdain and said, Although you're not weak, I'm afraid you'll become cannon fodder after entering the path to heaven. Elder Hua, whether I become cannon fodder or not is my own business. It has nothing to do with you. Etienne looked at Huang Yuk and replied cold. Whether you die or not doesn't matter. What matters is that you will waste the spot for the path to heaven. Huang Yuk smiled cold and said directly, The spot was given by the sect leader. If you have a problem with it, you can talk to the sect leader. Tianling laughed with a cold and arrogant face. Brat, Huang Yuk felt a tightness in his chest after being rebutted by Etienne. He was speechless. Enough. At this moment, Purple Zhu Xian spoke cold. It's getting late. Let's go. Sect leader. However, right at this moment, a voice rang out. A figure strode out and stared at Etienne with his beady eyes. He said in a loud voice, I feel that a weakling like him doesn't deserve to participate in the path to heaven with me. The provocative words caused a commotion in the crowd. That's right. He's only a late paramount god. He doesn't deserve to participate in the path to heaven. He just joined the seventh sect and hasn't even been through the selection process. What gives him the right to participate in the path to heaven? I can't accept that he's participating in the path to heaven. Everyone was shouting and yelling in opposition to Etienne. Every subsidiary sect in the 10,000 Mountains only had 8 spots for the path to heaven, and yet Tian and his people had taken 4. Of course, the other disciples of the 7th sect weren't happy about that. Purple Zhu Xin said with a frown, an embarrassed expression on her face. Tian looked at the person in front of him and realized that he looked very similar to Hua Zigui. Understanding immediately, he asked, "What's your relationship with Prince Hua?" When the man heard Tian mention Prince Hua's name, his face darkened and he said cold, "This Prince Hua is named Hua Zigui. I'm his 3rd brother, Hua Zigui." "Oh, so you're brothers," Tian said with a faint smile. "No wonder you're the same. Idiots." Now he understood why Hua Myuk had suddenly stepped forward to provoke him. He wanted to use Hua Zigui to make a move on Tian. Hua Zigui wasn't bad. He was a peak paramount god, and his battle prowess was roughly on par with Yu Qingqi. Chapter 2493. Chapter 2493. Chapter 243. Seeking his own death, Hua Zifu became enraged after hearing Tian's words. He let out a roar as his eyes flickered with a strong, murderous intent. "Asshole, who are you calling an idiot?" If Purple Bamboo missed and the others were not present, he would have attacked Tian right away. "I said you're an idiot, and that dead young Master Hua is an idiot too," Tianling said in a cold and arrogant tone. "You filthy brat, you're seeking your own death." Hua Zifu let out a roar as his aura skyrocketed. "Moron," Tian said with a cold, arrogant smile, as if he didn't want to pay any attention to Hua Zifu. "Hua Zifu, what do you think you're doing?" Purple Bamboo Mist asked in a cold tone. "Patriarch, I don't think this guy has the right to participate in the path to the heavens." Hua Zifu was not intimidated as he bowed and said, "We're geniuses that have been carefully selected by the sect. Who does this kid think he is? What gives him the right to participate in the path to the heavens?" "That's right. What give him the right to participate in the path to the heavens? He's not worthy to participate in the path to the heavens. Get him out of the 7th sect." Hua Zifu's words immediately garnered the approval of the crowd, who began to yell. The news of Tian and his crew participating in the path to the heavens had spread throughout the 7th sect, causing the other disciples to be extremely resentful toward them. Most importantly, they had no idea how strong Tian and his crew were. Seeing this, Purple Bamboo, flowing Mist's expression became extremely ugly. She did not expect her decision to incite the opposition of the entire sect. She was a strong-willed person, but if she was overly protective of Tian and his crew, it would definitely infuriate the people of the sect, which would make things even more troublesome. "Hua Zifu, do you think I don't have the right to participate in the path to the heavens?" At this time, Tian took a step forward, stared at Hua Zifu, and said, "Then tell me, what do I have to do to be qualified?" "It's very simple. As long as you can defeat me, I will admit that you are qualified to participate in the path to heaven." Hua Zifu smiled cold and said in a deep voice. As soon as his voice fell, he once again received the support of the crowd. "A duel of life and death. A duel to the death." The crowd shouted in unison, inciting Tian and Hua Zifu to fight to the death. "Brat, do you dare to have a life or death battle with me?" Hua Zifu sneered and said provocatively. "Oomph." Suddenly, Tianling chuckled and looked at Hua Zifu with a playful expression. "Brat, what are you laughing at?" Hua Zifu asked in a cold voice as he listened to Tian's laughter. "I have no interest in a life and death battle with an idiot." Tianling sneered and said, "If you want to fight, I can fight with you." "Arrogant." Hua Zifu roared and leaped into the air. He shouted, "Brat, come and accept your death." Tian raised his eyebrows. He moved and flew into the air. Seeing that Tian and Hua Zifu were really going to fight, the crowd was very excited. They thought Tian didn't dare have a life and death battle with Hua Zifu because he was scared. They didn't know that Tian didn't want to have a life and death battle with Hua Zifu because he thought Hua Zifu didn't deserve it. Hua Myuk stared at Tian in the sky. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness as he thought to himself, "Brat, you're dead meat." He had seen Yetion's fight, so he knew how powerful he was. But since he had asked Hua Zifu to fight, he had certainly made sufficient preparations to make sure nothing would go wrong. He was confident that Hua Zifu could kill Yetion. He couldn't wait to see the scene of Yetion being killed. But the three venerables had a different idea. They had seen Yetion fight, and he had blocked an attack from a star venerable. Looking at the two people high up in the sky, the star venerable twitched the corner of his mouth and said disdainfully, "This Hua Zifu wants to fight against Yetion. He is courting death." The sun venerable and the moon venerable were also confident in Yetion. "Brat, go to hell." At this moment, in the air, Hua Zifu let out a low roar. Immediately after, his entire body's aura surged as a violent energy gushed out, wreaking havoc in the air. Yetion felt Hua Zifu's energy, and he couldn't help but stare. Hua Zifu's energy didn't feel like that of an ordinary expert at the peak of the supreme god realm. It was like the energy of an expert half a step away from the peak. It was very strange. Formation. At the same time, Little Fat Cat's voice rang out in surprise. Yetion frowned, and then he understood. It turned out that Hua Zifu had opened a tactical formation scroll, which matched his own element, and made his energy surge. Hua Zifu, with the help of the tactical formation, could release an attack of an expert half a step away from the peak. So strong. The people below shouted in surprise when they sensed Hua Zifu's powerful energy. Despicable! The three venerables cursed at the same time. Hua Zifu had used a tactical formation scroll, and it wasn't his own tactical formation, so it wasn't his own power. Humph! Huamyuk sneered, and his face was cold. If it hadn't been for that tactical formation scroll, he wouldn't have dared to let Hua Zifu fight with Yetion. So you were prepared. No wonder you were so arrogant. Niet Tianling sneered, and there was no fear in his eyes. Instead, he looked even more disdainful. You are courting death. At that moment, Hua Zifu's energy surged to the extreme. He roared, and the power of the tactical formation was released completely. Then he thrust his palm, and the air around him shook. Boom! In an instant, an endless amount of energy gathered, and the shadow of a palm that was close to 10,000 meters long appeared. It was like a roaring ancient beast, and it pressed down on Yetion. Yetion, be careful. Seeing this, Jun Aoqing's beautiful eyes trembled, and she cried out. Everyone else was stunned as well. They stared at the sky, afraid that they would miss the most exciting scene. Since you are courting death, don't blame me. Niet Tianling sneered. His body shook, and an endless amount of sword was surged out. At the same time, the power of the fiend god was released, and an enormous fiend god sword was formed around him. Human sword, slash the stars. Then, Yetion's lips twitched as he murmured. This time, not only did he use the fiend god sword will, but he also used the sacred heaven-defying sword. Buzz! In the next moment, the god fiend sword will release a dazzling sword light, and a sword shadow that was close to 10,000 meters long appeared. A majestic sword cry burst out in the sky, like thunder in the nine heavens, and the clouds moved. At that instant, everyone's gaze stiffened as the astonishment in their hearts increased to the maximum. No one could have imagined that Yetion, who was only a late-stage paramount god, would be able to unleash such terrifying power. This was true power, and he wasn't relying on external forces. Boom! Boom! Following this, two extremely powerful forces began to move in the sky, clashing with one another like two raging dragons. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, the two forces collided, and the space around them froze. Then, a powerful shockwave spread out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, Yetion and Hua Zifu were engulfed by the shockwave and vanished. The crowd was completely shaken by what they had just witnessed. After a long moment, the shockwave in the sky faded away, and two figures appeared in front of everyone. One of them was as steady as Mount Tai, completely unharmed. Chapter 2494. The greatest surprise, everyone down below looked up at the scene in the sky, their eyes trembling and their faces slack. That figure was as steady as a mountain, his silver hair fluttering in the wind, and his eyes as sharp as a sword. It was none other than Yetion, and that bloodied figure was none other than Hua Zifu. Hua Zifu had used a powerful spell formation scroll to boost his strength, but he still wasn't a match for Yetion. Although Yetion looked like he was only a late paramount god, his true battle prowess was already at the peak of the half-step paramount god level. A deathly silence reigned, and the atmosphere was suffocating. How could you? Hua Zifu suddenly opened his mouth, but just as he moved, his body trembled, and he exploded into a cloud of blood-colored light. His body was filled with too much violent sword intent. In an instant, his martial body was unable to withstand the pressure of the sword intent, and it collapsed and exploded. The bloody scene caused everyone's pupils to constrict, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Yetion was too terrifying. He had killed Hua Zifu with a single sword strike, and not even his bones were left. Even Violet Bamboo, Flowing Mist, the three paragons, and the other top experts were completely shaken. They knew that Yetion was terrifyingly strong, but they hadn't imagined that he would be this strong. When Hua Zifu had used the spell formation scroll, the three paragons had assumed that Yetion would be able to protect himself, but that it would be impossible for him to kill Hua Zifu. However, only now did they realize that they had underestimated Yetion. Violet Bamboo, Flowing Mist looked at Yetion, her eyes trembling and her lips quivering. Her eyes shone brightly, and she thought to herself, Yetion, I wasn't wrong about you. Your strength will definitely shock everyone. If you can open the door to the path to heaven, I'll be able to save him. Violet Bamboo, Flowing Mist was shaken by Yetion's battle prowess, and her heart was filled with excitement. Previously, she only had some hope for Yetion, but now she had full confidence in Yetion. Hua Zifu, you asked for it. Don't blame me, Tianling said coldly in the air. He moved slightly and was ready to leave. Hua Zifu provoked in a domineering manner, and he was well prepared. It was obvious that he was determined to kill Yetion. If it weren't for Yetion's powerful strength, then he would have been the one to die. Brat, I'll tear you apart. But at this moment, an enraged roar could be heard as a silhouette soared into the sky like a raging dragon. His aura surged as he lunged towards Yetion. Yetion sensed the powerful aura rushing towards him. He narrowed his eyes, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He spat out two words coldly. You're courting death. Earth Sword, Moon Devourer. In the next moment, he turned around abruptly, and the sword within his body surged to the extreme. The power of the demons and gods was unleashed once again. A silhouette of a sword fell from the sky like a bolt of lightning. So powerful, the crowd, who were tens of thousands of meters away, could feel the surging sword aura above their heads. Their eyes trembled and they exclaimed. Yetion's sword, be it in terms of aura or power, was much stronger than his previous attack. Bang! Then, the silhouette of the sword fell, and with a dull thud, the silhouette that was charging towards him flew backwards and landed heavily on the ground like a lead bullet. Kaboom! The ground shook violently. On the hard bluestone floor, a crater that was a few hundred meters deep appeared. Everything around the crater cracked, and rocks flew everywhere. After a long time, a blood-colored silhouette lay in the deep crater. Elder Hua. The crowd looked over and couldn't help but exclaim in unison. The blood-colored silhouette was curled up and trembling. It was the head elder of the disciplinary hall, Hua Myuk. Everything had happened in the blink of an eye. No one had seen clearly who had attacked Yetion. Now that they saw it was Hua Myuk, one could imagine how shocked they were. If Yetion had been able to kill Hua Zifu, it would have been reasonable. Everyone could understand, and they could have regarded Yetion as a monster. But Yetion had defeated Hua Myuk with a single sword attack. That overturned everyone's understanding of martial arts. Hua Myuk was the head elder of the disciplinary hall, and he was considered the second most powerful person in the seventh sect after the sect master. Of course, That was because very few people knew about the existence of the three supremes. Someone like that had been defeated by Nietian with a single sword attack. The shock was indescribable. Nietian's strength had exceeded the understanding of martial arts for most people. They couldn't believe that a late-stage paramount god could have such shocking strength. At that moment, even Purple Bamboo, Flowing Mist, and the three supremes were completely dumbfounded. Only now did they realize that they had underestimated Nietian. It took more than 10 seconds for the three supremes and the others to come to their senses. This kid is too scary. He wasn't this strong half a month ago. He must have absorbed the power of the rainbow dew. Venerated Moon exclaimed in his heart, and he looked horrified. He remembered that when he had seen Nietian half a month ago, his aura hadn't been as strong as it was now. There was no doubt that Nietian's strength had increased after he had consumed the rainbow dew. Both Venerated Sun and Venerated Star were also dumbfounded. The shock in their hearts was indescribable. Now let me ask you, am I qualified to participate in the path to heaven? Nietian asked in a low voice. He didn't look at Huamyuk at all. Instead, he glanced at the crowd and said in a deep voice. His voice wasn't loud, but every word he said was like thunder in the 9 heavens. They felt like their eardrums were about to burst. Previously, most people had thought that Nietian wasn't qualified to participate in the path to heaven. But now, after witnessing Nietian's battle prowess, they no longer dared to say the same thing. If Nietian wasn't qualified to participate in the path to heaven, then no one from the 7th sect was qualified. There was dead silence, and no one dared to speak. Nietian smirked coldly. He didn't say anything else, and his body moved as he landed. Purple Bamboo Mist looked at Nietian with sparkling eyes. She couldn't help but feel excited, and she said to herself, his talent is too terrifying. I'm afraid that only the few geniuses from the 10,000 Mountain sect can compare to him. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7, my dear brother, Nietian will be the biggest surprise I prepared for you on the path to the heavens this time. Purple Bamboo Mist sneered inwardly as she looked at Nietian with a hint of evil in her eyes. She was once again convinced that she had made a wise decision not to kill him. Let's go, Nietian. Purple Bamboo Mist came to Nietian's side and said with a faint smile. Okay. Nietian nodded slightly with a calm expression. Then Purple Bamboo Mist and the 3 venerated gods left with Nietian and the other 3 martial artists who were participating in the path to heaven. From the beginning to the end, Purple Bamboo Mist didn't even look at Huamyuk. Huamyuk had meticulously planned this provocation for the sake of revenge. However, in the end, another of his grandsons had died, and he had been seriously injured. Chapter 2495. The first sect leader Purple Bamboo Mist and the 3 venerables led Nietian and the others away from the 7th sect, heading towards the main sect of the 10,000 Mountains. Along the way, the other 3 martial artists would come up to Nietian and the others from time to time, gradually becoming familiar with each other. Aside from Nietian's group of 4, the other 3 were all disciples of the 7th sect, and all of them were supreme gods. Nietian found it very strange that the martial artists of the Frozen Ruins were so much stronger than those of the 9 realms. He had already learned from his conversation with the 3 venerables that there were demi-saints in the Frozen Ruins, as well as demi-saints and false saints. According to the 3 venerables, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7, the leader of the 10,000 Mountains, was a demi-saint. Along the way, Nietian asked the other 3 a few questions, most of which were about the 10,000 Mountains. The 3 of them worshipped Nietian greatly and were naturally willing to tell him. Through them, Nietian learned many things. However, the 3 of them had never taken part in the path to heaven, and so did not know much about it. Brother Nietian, I heard that you came from another realm. Is that true? That was when the burly Li Liang came over and asked curiously. Yeah. Nietian nodded and smiled. But the martial artists of our realm are not as strong as those of the Frozen Ruins. Huh? The dark-skinned Zhao Xing exclaimed in surprise. And here I thought that the martial artists of your realm were all as monstrous as you. With a chuckle, Li Liang said, since that realm of yours is so weak, doesn't it mean that Brother Nietian can do whatever he wants? Nyetian laughed, but did not say anything else. Brother Nyetian, why did you come to the frozen ruins? It was then that Wang Ying, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. Her voice was a little delicate, and she was very petite, the type of girl from a humble family. If you knew of the existence of other realms, would you not want to go? Nyetian smiled faintly and countered with a question. Of course, he couldn't reveal that he was here for the 10,000 with spiritual heart. That's true. Wang Ying pursed her lips and smiled lightly. Nyetian, we are almost there. Just then, Yuzun moved and came to Nyetian's side. He smiled and said, Is that the 10,000 Mountains main sect? Nyetian asked excitedly as he looked at the endless mountain range in front of him. Yes. Moon nodded and said, The mountain range ahead is called the 10,000 Mountains. The 10,000 Mountain School is located in the 10,000 Mountains. Nyetian, after we enter the 10,000 Layer Mountain sect, you'll have to restrain yourself. Then the Star Venerable showed up. He said with a smile, Although your power is dreadful, the other branches also have great geniuses. They are not easy to deal with, either. Yes. Then, Yangzun also came over. He nodded and said, Especially the few from the main sect. They are very scary. Their talents are no weaker than yours. Nyetian smiled faintly and said, Don't worry, honored sirs. I am not a reckless person. As long as they don't provoke me, I will not provoke them. That's good. Celestial Moon smiled faintly as she looked at Nyetian with unconcealable anticipation. We are here. After a while, everyone arrived above the 10,000 mountains. Purple Bamboo Mist spoke. Everyone steadied themselves and kept a distance from Purple Bamboo Mist. However, Purple Bamboo Mist did not move. Instead, he stayed where he was and waited. Nyetian frowned. He didn't know what Purple Bamboo Mist was waiting for. He wasn't in a hurry. He casually observed his surroundings. The 10,000 mountains was really vast. The mountain range was endless. He couldn't see the end of it. Everyone waited on the spot for half an hour, but there was no movement. Lord Nyetian, what is going on? Yu Qingqi was getting impatient. He quietly went to Nyetian and asked in a low voice. Nyetian shook his head. He didn't know what was going on either. That's strange. Usually, there would be people coming to receive us. Why is it so quiet this time? Venerable Star was also getting impatient. He frowned and said, Don't rush. Let's wait a little longer. Moonzun was calmer. He coughed and said, Maybe the people who receive us are too busy. They are on their way. Then, everyone waited for another half an hour. The sky had turned dark. Are the people in charge of receiving us eating **T? Why are they still not here? Venerable Star was a little annoyed. He shouted in a low voice. Venerable, calm down. Moonzun hurriedly looked at Venerable Star to tell him not to be impatient. At this moment, Purple Bamboo, flowing Mist expression, was extremely ugly. Let's go in. After thinking for a while, Purple Bamboo Mist moved and prepared to enter the 10,000 mountains. Sect Lord, that's not a good idea. Moonzun moved and stopped Purple Bamboo Mist. He said, Let's wait a little longer. In the 10,000 mountain sect, the rules were like iron. There was a strict relationship between the main sect and the subsidiary sections. If anyone from a subsidiary sect wanted to enter the main sect, they had to be received by someone from the main sect. Otherwise, they couldn't enter. If Purple Bamboo Mist entered the 10,000 Mountains sect directly, it would be against the rules of the sect. Sect Lord, let's wait a little longer. Yangzun walked over and tried to persuade Purple Bamboo Mist not to act rashly. Sect Lord, let's listen to Yangzun and Moonzun. Let's wait a little longer. Venerable Star was also trying to persuade Purple Bamboo Mist not to act rashly. Purple Bamboo Mist's eyes flickered and she nodded slightly. After a short while, several figures appeared in the sky. They quickly arrived next to Purple Bamboo Mist and the others. They were led by a short, fat man with a fake smile on his face. Behind him were 8 young cultivators with powerful auras. They were all peak paramount gods. Nyetian's brows furrowed slightly. He immediately realized that this person was from another branch sect. Purple Bamboo Mist, long time no see. The short fatty's figure moved and landed. He was actually less than 10 meters away from Purple Bamboo, Flowing Mist. Generally speaking, godly state cultivators wouldn't stay close to each other unless they were very close. Normally, cultivators who were close to each other would keep a certain distance. Because for godly state cultivators, the distance within 100 meters was extremely dangerous. Kuei Mu Jun, Purple Bamboo Mist frowned slightly. She looked at the short, fat man and replied coldly. The short, fat man was called Kuei Mu Jun. He was the sect lord of the first sect. In the 10,000 Mountains sect, the first sect was second only to the main sect. It was stronger than the seventh sect. Nietian looked at Kuei Mu Jun. He used his divine consciousness to sense him. He was slightly shocked. The fat man didn't look handsome, but his aura was extremely powerful. Judging from his aura, Kuei Mu Jun, he was even stronger than Purple Bamboo Mist. Mist, you don't seem happy to see me, Kuei Mu Jun. A strange smile appeared on his face as he said playfully, "Damn fatty, our sect lord isn't interested in you. Get lost." At this moment, Star Venerable shouted before Purple Bamboo Mist could speak. He looked at Kuei Mu Jun. He seemed to despise Kuei Mu Jun. Everyone in the 10,000 Mountains sect knew that Kuei Mu Jun. He had pursued Purple Bamboo Mist when he was young, but she had rejected him. Therefore, the relationship between Kuei Mu Jun. Chapter 2496. Chapter 2496. Chapter 2496. Who's the idiot? Star Venerable, watch out. Purple Bamboo Mist reacted instantly and shouted, but it was too late. Bang! With a muffled sound, the Star Venerable flew backward for hundreds of meters before he could stabilize himself. He looked very embarrassed. Bastard! The Star Venerable steadied his body, roared, and released his energy. Although he was not injured, he looked very embarrassed. He never expected that the Kuei Mu Jun, as the leader of a sect, would suddenly attack him. It was no different from a sneak attack. Star Venerable, don't be impulsive. The Sun Venerable and the Moon Venerable moved together and came to the Star Venerable's side to stabilize him. The Kuei Mu Jun's attack was obviously just a deterrent, and he didn't really kill him. But if the Star Venerable attacked, it would be different. After all, the Kuei Mu Jun was the first sect leader. If the Star Venerable attacked him, he would be offending his superior. Dog slave, remember your identity. The Kuei Mu Jun snarled and stared at the Star Venerable fiercely. When he pursued Purple Bamboo Mist, the three Venerables strongly opposed it. Now that he was the first sect leader, he naturally had to seize the opportunity to humiliate the other party. Kuei Mu Jun, what do you want? Purple Bamboo Mist frowned and asked cold. Nothing. I just want to say a few words to you. The Kuei Mu Jun smiled sinisterly and said, by the way, you chose a traitor, but not me. Now, do you regret it? Mu Honglu is not a traitor. Hearing the Kuei Mu Jun's words, Purple Bamboo Mist became excited, and her beautiful eyes trembled. Not a traitor? The Kuei Mu Jun sneered again and said, if he is not a traitor, why did the Lord of the main sect imprison him? Nietian's eyebrows furrowed as he immediately understood. The person Purple Bamboo Mist and the Kuei Mu Jun were talking about was Purple Bamboo Mist's husband, Mu Honglu. Kuei Mu Jun, if you dare to slander Honglu again, don't blame me for being rude. Purple Bamboo Mist said in a deep voice, staring at the Kuei Mu Jun coldly. Rude? Kuei Mu Jun said with a mocking expression. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. I like to see how impolite you are. Kuei Mu Jun, you... Purple Bamboo Mist's pretty face darkened, and she felt a tightness in her chest, rendering her speechless. Kuei Mu Army, don't go too far. Venerable Moon couldn't stand it anymore. He said coldly, even if you're the first sect leader, you have to know that our sect leader is from the Purple Bamboo clan. Oh, Kuei Mu Jun sneered and said, are you using the Black Bamboo clan to pressure me? With that, he turned to look at Nietian and the others with a cold smile. Look at you people from the seventh sect. You're all trash. There are 8 participants in the path to heaven, but there are only 7 of you. And of those 7, There are two late paramount gods, Yang Qi murmured. What are these two people doing? Just to make up the numbers? Or to be cannon fodder? The more Kuei Mu Jun spoke, the more arrogant he became. The seventh sect used to be a powerful branch sect, but now it has fallen into the hands of you, purple bamboo flowing mist. In just a few decades, it has weakened to this point. If you weren't the sister of the Lord sect leader, you wouldn't have the chance to be the seventh sect leader. Kuei Mu Jun's words were more arrogant than the last. Purple bamboo flowing mist's pretty face was so gloomy that her chest was heaving violently. Sect leader, since you say that I'm trash, then aren't the people behind you even more trash than trash? Right at this moment, a calm voice rang out. Kuei Mu Jun was stunned at first. Then he looked around and saw a silver-haired warrior in front of him. He couldn't help but sneer and say, "Boy, you only have the strength of a late paramount god, and you want to participate in the path to heaven? If you're not trash, then what are you?" The two late paramount gods he mentioned were not people, but Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing. Being called trash by others, how could Nie Tian not stand up and say something? Is that so? Nie Tianling sneered, then locked his eyes on the people behind Kuei Mu Jun and said, "Then I, this trash, would like to challenge you. I wonder who dares to accept the challenge." Huh? Kuei Mu Jun's eyes narrowed. At first, he thought he had heard wrong, but the next moment, he confirmed Nie Tian's words, and then he laughed loudly and said, "A late paramount god trash want to challenge a peak paramount god? Should I say you're a fool? Or an idiot?" Ha ha ha. Kuei Mu Jun's words caused a burst of laughter behind him. Humph. Nie Tian smiled gloomily and said, "Between the two of us, there is indeed an idiot, but unfortunately, it's not me." Huh? Kuei Mu Jun frowned, and then his face darkened. He stared at Nie Tian and said in a deep voice, "Brat, you dare to say that I'm an idiot?" Nie Tian smiled faintly and said without fear, "Whether you're an idiot or not, you'll know soon. You're courting death." Kuei Mu Jun's face suddenly darkened, and he growled, "I'll destroy you first." As his voice fell, he attacked again, and a terrible aura rolled out, pressing down on Nie Tian. Boom! An oppressive aura suddenly arrived and enveloped Nie Tian, making him feel as if the space around him had suddenly sunk. But he was not afraid at all. His eyes flashed coldly, and his body shook, releasing the power of the stars. Bang! The next moment, Kuei Mu Jun's aura directly collapsed, and even he himself was forced to take a few steps back. How is this possible? Kuei Mu Jun stabilized his body, and his eyes suddenly trembled. He cried out in horror and looked at Nie Tian as if he had seen a ghost. He had never expected that Nie Tian would be able to easily break through his oppressive aura and force him to retreat. The aura released by him just now was enough to kill a peak supreme god warrior in an instant. But Nie Tian only had the strength of a late-stage supreme god. How could he know that Nie Tian's current combat strength was comparable to a half-step peak warrior? Not to mention that Kuei Mu Jun didn't have the strength of a half-step saint. Even if he really had the cultivation of a half-step saint, it was impossible for him to defeat Nie Tian with his aura. Now, how do you see clearly? Who's the idiot? Nie Tianling said with a provocative smile. Brat, you're courting death. Kuei Mu Jun's eyes darkened, and he reacted in an instant. Then his figure moved, and his aura surged, and he slammed his palm directly toward Nie Tian. Boom! The moment the palm shadow appeared, the space suddenly trembled, as if it was about to be torn apart. Nie Tian's eyes trembled, and starlight heaven slash appeared in his hand. He didn't expect that Kuei Mu Jun would be so shameless to attack him directly. Stop! Almost at the same time, a voice suddenly sounded, and then a majestic force surged out from the void, turned into a green shield, and wrapped around Nie Tian. Bang! Then the palm shadow fell, and endless power exploded, but it couldn't hurt Nie Tian. The green shield blocked most of the attack for him. Chapter 2497. Chapter 2497. Chapter 2497. Impassioned Nie Tian's eyes widened as he looked at purple bamboo and flowing mist and let out a long breath. Fortunately, purple bamboo mist intervened in time. Otherwise, Nyetian would have been injured. Kue Mujun was not a half-step saint, but he was a powerhouse at the peak of the godly state. With Nyetian's current strength, his strongest combat strength was a half-step peak powerhouse. It was impossible for him to fight with a powerhouse at the peak of the godly state. Kue Mujun, are you crazy? Purple bamboo mist figure moved and protected Nyetian behind her as she growled cold. Moof. Kue Mujun smiled coldly and stared at Nyetian. He said, I must kill this boy today. Whoever dares to stop me will die with him. Lunatic, purple bamboo mist shouted, and her aura surged. Nyetian was her hope to save Mu Honglu. She would not allow anything to happen to Nyetian. In the sky, Kue Mujun and purple bamboo mist were confronting each other. A battle was about to break out. Stop! However, at this moment, a deep voice rang out. Then, a gray-clothed old man appeared with several martial artists standing behind him. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly. He used his divine sense to sense, and immediately found that the gray-clothed old man was at the peak of the godly state, and the people behind him were all half-step peak powerhouses. The 10,000 Mountain sect is so powerful. Nyetian frowned and said in his heart, Third Elder. Kue Mujun and purple bamboo mist expressions changed at the same time when they saw the gray-clothed old man. They bowed and shouted respectfully. The person who came was the third elder of the 10,000 Mountain main sect. His status was higher than that of the branch sect's sect master. The two branch sect's sect masters are fighting in front of their own gate. What scandal! The third elder arrived and glanced at Kue Mujun and purple bamboo mist as he scolded coldly. I know my mistake. Kue Mujun quickly admitted his mistake with a respectful expression. Purple bamboo mist frowned, but did not say anything. Seeing this, the third elder didn't say anything more. His attitude became a lot calmer as he said, I'm really sorry. Something happened in the sect, and I've kept you waiting. Both of you, please follow me. Then, the third elder's silhouette moved, preparing to enter the 10,000 mountains. Wait. However, at this moment, a voice rang out. The third elder narrowed his eyes and suddenly turned around. When he saw that the person who spoke was a silver-haired cultivator, his face sank. Cold, he asked, What do you want? The silver-haired cultivator who suddenly spoke was none other than Nyetian. Third elder, just before you arrived, the number 1 sect master insulted our 7th sect. Nyetian said calmly, I would like to challenge a disciple of the first sect on behalf of the 7th sect. May I ask the third elder to be my witness? The third elder looked at Nyetian, his face darkening even more. He said in a cold voice, Young man, with your strength, are you sure you want to challenge a disciple of the first sect? The third elder looked at Nyetian with disdain, as if to say, You're just a late-stage paramount god, and you want to challenge a peak paramount god? Aren't you looking to die? Third elder, I've made up my mind. Nyetian naturally knew what the third elder was thinking. He said in a loud voice, I may not be strong, but I can't let anyone insult me. This challenge is not only for my personal dignity, but also for the honor of the 7th sect. Even if I die in battle, I can die without regrets. He spoke very excitedly and passionately. Purple bamboo mist, and the third patriarch almost laughed out loud. They knew how strong Nyetian was. He was someone who had defeated a peak half-step expert with a single sword strike. Unless there was a peak half-step expert in the first sect, it was impossible for them to be a match for Nyetian. The third elder frowned slightly. He looked at Nyetian with a changed expression. After thinking for a moment, he said in a deep voice, Well, since you're so courageous, I'll be a witness. Then he turned to the Kue Mu army and asked, First sect leader, will the first sect accept the challenge? In that case, the first sect will certainly not shrink back. The Kue Mu army smiled coldly and looked at Nyetian with an extremely cold look. In fact, he was thinking about it just now, but he was too embarrassed to say it out loud. He didn't expect that Nyetian would take the initiative to propose it, which was exactly what he wanted. Then, The Kuei-mu army turned to the 8 people behind him and asked loudly, "Which one of you is willing to accept his challenge?" "Lord Sect Leader, I'll do it." "Lord Sect Leader, let me do it." "Lord Sect Leader, let me do it." The 8 martial artists were very enthusiastic and wanted to fight with Nyetian. They knew that Nyetian was a late-stage supreme god, so they all wanted to take this opportunity to defeat Nyetian and win glory for the first sect. At the same time, they could also show their faces in front of the 3rd elder and the others. In their opinion, Nyetian was just a small fry who could be killed in one move. Killing a small fry could get the favor of the sect leader and even the people of the main sect. Where else could they find such a good thing? "Father, let me do it." At this moment, an extremely cold-looking cultivator spoke in a deep voice. His voice was low, and his killing intent was extremely heavy. Nyetian looked at the man, and his eyes narrowed slightly. He was surprised in his heart. This guy's a peak half-step expert. The cold martial artist looked very young, and his facial features were handsome as if they were carved by a knife. In terms of appearance alone, the cold martial artist was much better than the Kuei-mu army. But he was the son of the Kuei-mu army, Kuei-mu Jingshun. Jingshun, don't do it. It's too much of a bully. The Kuei-mu army smiled faintly, but he didn't let Kuei-mu Jingshun do it. Instead, he pointed at a martial artist and said, "Kuei-mu, you do it." "Thank you, sect leader." The martial artist, named Kuei-mu, was overjoyed, as if he had picked up a treasure. But at this time, Kuei-mu Jingshun came to Kuei-mu's side and said in a low voice, "Kuei-mu, be careful. This kid's strength is strange." Kuei-mu Jingshun didn't care about Kuei-mu Jingshun's warning and said with a smile, "Brother Jingshun, don't worry. He's just a late-stage supreme god trash. How strange can he be?" Kuei-mu Jingshun frowned, and his face showed deep worry. Then, Kuei-mu's figure moved, and he jumped into the sky and shouted arrogantly, "Brat, get up here and die." The corner of Nyetian's mouth twitched, and he murmured, "One of us will die, but it's not me." After saying that, his figure moved, and he rushed into the sky, facing Kuei-mu. Everyone looked at the two of them with different expressions on their faces. The people of the 7th sect were indifferent. They knew that with Nyetian's strength, it was impossible for him to lose. The people of the 1st sect, on the other hand, looked complacent. They also felt that Kuei-mu wouldn't lose. Only Kuei-mu Jingshun looked worried. Eyebrows furrowed, the 3rd elder thought to himself, "This kid doesn't look so stupid. Don't tell me he's hiding his strength?" He inferred from Nyetian's words and actions that the latter was an extremely smart person, and it was impossible for him to do something stupid. Chapter 2498. Get lost. High up in the sky, Nyetian and Kuei-mu stood there, glaring at each other. "Kid, you're not strong enough, but you have guts to challenge a peak paramount god with your late-stage paramount god strength." Kuei-mu said coldly. His eyes were filled with intense, killing intent. "I can't believe you actually dared to accept my challenge," Nyetian said with a faint smile, a teasing expression on his face. "You're courting death." Kuei-mu sensed Nyetian's disdain. He smiled cold and said, "Don't worry, I won't kill you. I'll cripple you and let you live a life worse than death." Is that so?" Nyetian sneered, the corner of his mouth curling up into a cold smile. I'll break your hands first." Immediately afterwards, Kuei-mu let out a furious roar and blurred into motion. 2 fierce auras whizzed out of his body, which morphed into 2 sharp blades that slashed towards Nyetian. Standing in place, Nyetian didn't even spare them a glance. With a shake of his body, a streak of cold sword intent shot out. Puff! Puff! In the next moment, an incredible scene appeared. The sound of flesh tearing came from the sky, and then 2 balls of blood appeared. "Ah, my hands!" Then, Kuei-mu's miserable howl could be heard. His hands were directly cut off, and his body was instantly covered in blood. Many people's expressions changed, and they were horrified. Those with lower strength didn't even see when Nyetian made his move. The sword intent was too fast, and it was extremely terrifying. What a terrifying sword intent! Kue Murue Jun was stunned, and his eyes trembled as he exclaimed, "He really is strange." Kue Murue Jingchen was also surprised, but compared to Kue Murue Jun, it was normal. He had long seen that there was a terrifying power hidden in Nia Tian's body, so he warned Kue Murue to be careful. Unfortunately, Kue Murue didn't listen at all. In fact, even if Kue Murue heard it, it wouldn't change anything. After all, the gap between him and Nia Tian is too big. Even Third Elder was stupefied. His eyes were trembling, and he couldn't react for a long time. This kid is a peerless genius. After a while, the Third Elder's eyes trembled as he exclaimed his heart. At this moment, Nia Tian smiled faintly in the sky, looked at Kue Murue with a playful look, and said loudly, "Kue Murue, your hands are broken. Do you still want to cripple me?" "I admit defeat." Kue Murue's face suddenly turned pale and green, and he said hurriedly, "It's good that you admit defeat." Nia Tian smiled. His silhouette flickered as he landed on the ground. He came to a place not far from the Kue Mu army, looked at the latter provocatively, and said, "First Sect Master, you said I'm trash. What now? Are you from the First Sect, even more trash than me?" "Brat, you—" The Kue Mu army clenched his fists, and his face was gloomy. He couldn't wait to kill Nia Tian directly. But now that the Third Elder was next to him, he didn't dare to attack Nia Tian. "Ha ha! You all said that the Seventh Sect has declined, but who would have thought that there would be a peerless genius in the Seventh Sect?" At this time, the Third Elder laughed loudly, came to Nia Tian's side, and said very politely, "Little brother, how should I address you?" "I'm Nia Tian." Nia Tian nodded lightly with a calm expression. At this moment, the Third Elder no longer looked at Nia Tian with disdain and contempt in his eyes. Instead, they were filled with admiration and shock. This is the role of strength. Only with strength can you have dignity. Nia Tian, good name. The Third Elder laughed heartily and said, "I dare say that with your strength, you will be one of the 3 Heaven's Chosen Ones on the path to heaven this time." Heaven's Chosen One? Nia Tian was stunned. He had no idea what the Third Elder was talking about. Purple Bamboo, Flowing Mist, the Kue Mu army, and the 3 Supremes were stunned when they heard the Third Elder's words. They didn't expect the Third Elder to have such a high evaluation of Nia Tian. In the path to heaven, only the top 3 Heaven's Chosen Ones could become Heaven's Chosen Ones, and they had to be recognized by the path to heaven. The Third Elder's evaluation of Nia Tian was indeed very high. "All right, let's go." Then, the Third Elder did not explain too much. He smiled and headed toward the 10,000 mountains. Not long after, under the guidance of the Third Elder, Nia Tian and the others entered the 10,000 mountains and arrived at a huge square. I didn't expect there to be such a huge square in the vast mountains. Nia Tian looked at the huge square in front of him and was secretly surprised. The square in front of him had a circumference of about 100,000 meters. It was extremely spacious. In the midst of this endless mountain range, there was such a square, which made people gasp in amazement. Then, under the Third Elder's arrangement, Nia Tian and the others entered the 10,000 Mountain Sect and stayed in an average-sized residence. 7th Sect Leader, the path to heaven will be activated tomorrow. Please have a good rest tonight. I shall take my leave." The Third Elder bade farewell to Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist and left. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist frowned as she stared at the Third Elder's back, as if she was worried about something. "Lord Sect Leader, what exactly is the path to heaven?" Nia Tian couldn't contain his curiosity and asked. "You'll know tomorrow." Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist was still unwilling to tell him. She smiled and went into a room to rest. Nia Tian shook his head helplessly. He could only wait until tomorrow. The next day, Nia Tian and the others were led by a martial artist to the huge square the day before. At this time, the square was filled with tens of thousands of people. Nia Tian and the others followed Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist closely, not daring to stray too far. He was curious. Could the path to heaven be activated here? But in this huge square, there was clearly nothing at all. "Nia Tian, take them and wait here," At this moment, purple bamboo flowing mist said, then turned around and left. Nyetian was confused. He didn't know what purple bamboo flowing mist was going to do. He couldn't ask too much and could only wait where he was. Nyetian. At this time, a familiar voice was heard. Purple bamboo flowing mist. Nyetian turned around and saw a familiar face. It was none other than purple bamboo flowing mist. Nyetian, you really came to participate in the path to heaven. Purple bamboo flowing mist was very excited to see Nyetian again. Nyetian's reaction was calm. He smiled and asked, Miss Flowing Mist, are you also participating in the path to heaven? When purple bamboo flowing mist heard Nyetian's words, she pouted unhappily. What's wrong? Nyetian asked with a smile when he saw purple bamboo flowing mist's reaction. Nyetian, I might not be able to participate in the path to heaven. Purple bamboo flowing mist frowned and said with a depressed expression. Nyetian frowned and was about to say something. Flowing mist. However, at this time, a voice was suddenly heard. A figure appeared and quickly walked to purple bamboo flowing mist's side. Nyetian looked up and discovered that it was a handsome young man in white garments, who looked very heroic. However, there was a hint of evil in his eyes. Xiangyaru, why are you here again? I told you not to follow me. Purple bamboo flowing mist turned to look at the young man in white. She frowned and said with a look of disgust, Flowing mist, who is he? Xiangyaru didn't look at purple bamboo flowing mist. Instead, his gaze was fixed on Nyetian. His expression sank as he spoke in a cold tone. I'm purple bamboo flowing mist friend. Nyetian frowned but still replied politely. Chapter 2499. Chapter 2499. Chapter 249. The two geniuses. Xiangyaru's attitude was extremely arrogant. He stared coldly at Nyetian, as if the latter had a deep grudge against him. Nyetian's eyes narrowed slightly, and his face instantly darkened. He could be considered friendly with Xiangyaru, but the latter had told him to get lost. If it were any other place, he definitely wouldn't have tolerated it. But this was the 10,000 Mountains sect, and the three paragons had specifically told him to restrain himself. After thinking about it, Nyetian ignored Xiangyaru and stood to the side in silence. Xiangyaru, what are you doing? However, Zijushin was enraged. Her delicate face turned cold as she snapped. I order you to apologize to Nyetian immediately. Apologize? Xiangyaru let out a cold laugh. His cold gaze swept over Nyetian as he said arrogantly, Apologize to him? A piece of late-stage paramount god, trash, wants me to apologize to Iru? What a joke. Nyetian's face darkened again as he felt a suffocating feeling in his heart. He wasn't a narrow-minded person, but Xiangyaru's arrogance and humiliation made him very unhappy. At this time, the crowd gathered around. When they saw Xiangyaru's figure, they were all shocked. Isn't that Xiangyaru, one of the top 5 geniuses of the 10,000 Mountains sect? Yeah, I heard that Xiangyaru reached peak paramount god a long time ago. After so many years, he must be a half-step peak expert now. Half-step peak? I think Xiangyaru is already a peak god realm expert. Maybe Xiangyaru is already a half-step saint. The crowd discussed among themselves. All of their attention focused on Xiangyaru. Xiangyaru's face rippled with a smile when he heard the crowd's discussion, clearly enjoying it. There were 5 top geniuses in the 10,000 Mountains sect, and Xiangyaru was one of them. Therefore, he was very famous in the 10,000 Mountains sect. Many people didn't recognize Zijushin, but they did. Xiangyaru, are you going to apologize or not? Zijushin spoke up coldly at that moment. Exion Air, don't you think it's too much to ask a genius like me to apologize to a piece of trash in front of so many people? Xiangyaru's face darkened slightly, and he looked at Zijushin seriously. Nyetian is my friend. Zijushin said cold. It's enough that you have me. You don't need other friends. Xiangyaru's expression darkened. His gaze swept over Nyetian with complete disdain. He said, I especially don't need this kind of trash as a friend. Exina, let's go. There's no need to waste time on a piece of trash. After saying that, Xiangyaru pulled Zijushin up and prepared to leave. Xiangyaru, let go of me. Zijushin cried out in fear. Her face paled in fright. However, Xiang Yiru's hand was like an iron pincer, holding on to Zijushin tightly, not letting her break free. The crowd was shocked at Xiang Yiru's overbearing behavior. They only dared to watch from the side, not daring to speak. "Xiang Yiru, you bastard, let go of me!" Zijushin screamed, her face flushed red. How could she, a girl, not be angry when she was being pulled by a man in front of so many people? Nie Tian frowned. He took a step forward, wanting to stop Xiang Yiru. "Xiang Yiru, let go of Xen." However, at this moment, a deep voice rang out. Immediately, a figure appeared in midair, emitting a powerful aura. The crowd was affected by the aura and quickly retreated. Chan Yufeng. Xiang Yiru suddenly looked at the figure in midair and shouted out his name. The crowd was stunned at first, but they quickly reacted. Their eyes trembled as they looked at the figure in the sky with excitement. I really didn't expect Chang Yufeng to appear as well. 2 of the top 5 geniuses have appeared at once. This is going to be a good show. Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng won't fight, right? They will definitely fight. Who doesn't know that they are both chasing after Miss Zijushin? So this is Miss Zijushin. She is indeed beautiful, and she is the daughter of the sect leader. No wonder so many geniuses are chasing after her. The crowd discussed animatedly, their eyes burning with excitement. It was obvious that they were ready to watch a good show. Yet Tian frowned slightly. He used his divine sense to probe Chang Yufeng, and he was slightly surprised. Chang Yufeng's aura was no weaker than Xiang Yiru's. Judging from their auras, they were both half-step peak experts. Judging from their strength, the overall strength of the Frozen Ruin was a level higher than that of the 9 major realms. Whether it was Chang Yufeng or Xiang Yiru, they were both considered young martial artists. Their ages were not considered old, and they were both below 50,000 years old. In any of the 9 realm verses, it would be impressive for someone like him to reach the paramount god level, much less the half-peak level. In the 9 major realms, even among the older generation, there were not many who could reach the half-step peak. Chang Yufeng, who do you think you are? Why should I let go of her just because you tell me to? Xiang Yiru looked at Chang Yufeng cold, but his grip on Zijushin's hand tightened. "Xiang Yiru, you're hurting me." Zijushin's face twisted in anger. Chang Yufeng's eyes burned with anger, and he growled, "Xiang Yiru, if you don't let go of Xenair, don't blame me for being impolite." Xiang Yiru smiled coldly and said disdainfully, "You want to fight me? I, Xiang Yiru, will fight you to the end." With that, Xiang Yiru let go of Zijushin and leaped into the air, standing opposite Chang Yufeng. They're really going to fight. Seeing this scene, the crowd's eyes suddenly trembled, and they cried out in surprise, seeming very excited. The corner of Nietian's mouth twitched as he looked at the 2 people in midair. He thought to himself, "These 2 are really interesting. I can't believe they're fighting like this. But their strength should be about the same. It's hard to say who will win." Chang Yufeng and Xiang Yiru were both half-step peak. It was hard to predict who would win. "Xiang Yiru, do you really want to fight with me?" Chang Yufeng's figure froze in midair as he asked coldly. "Are you afraid?" Xiang Yiru asked in a loud voice. "Afraid?" Chang Yufeng laughed and said, "I, Chang Yufeng, am afraid of you? What a joke." Xiang Yiru smiled coldly, and his aura suddenly surged, causing the space around him to tremble. At the same time, Chang Yufeng's chi skyrocketed as well. Waves of energy poured out of him and formed a curtain of rain around him. It was very eerie. "I'll defeat you in one move." Xiang Yiru was not afraid. He moved, and his aura surged, and he struck out with his palm. Chapter 2500. Sinister and cunning so strong. Everyone felt the powerful palm energy coming from the sky, and their eyes trembled as they exclaimed. Xiang Yiru was indeed powerful. His palm energy was as powerful as a mountain, causing the space within 10,000 meters to tremble. Nietian's pupils constricted slightly as he was taken aback. He speculated that Xiang Yiru's strength was on par with Huamyuk, the 7th Sex Hall of Law Enforcement. In the air, Chang Yufeng did not panic in the slightest as he faced Xiang Yiru's violent palm attack. Instead, he moved, and the curtain of rain around him suddenly spread out. In an instant, countless raindrops appeared in the air, filling up the space within 10,000 meters. It was as if there was a storm in the air. Strangely, the raindrops did not fall to the ground. Instead, they surrounded Chang Yufeng as if they had a life of their own. Whoosh! In the next moment, the terrifying palm shadow fell. The moment it touched the curtain of rain, it shook violently and shattered in the air, dissipating into a violent force. The sudden and strange scene caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. They did not know what was going on in front of them. Xiang Yiru steadied himself. He was also very surprised. Chang Yufeng smiled cold and said arrogantly, "Xiang Yiru, is this all you've got? That's all you've got. It's a shame that I, Chang Yufeng, am on the same level as you." Chang Yufeng, you. Xiang Yiru felt his chest tighten after being humiliated by Chang Yufeng in front of the crowd. He was speechless. Tian could not help but smile as he watched from below. He thought to himself, this Chang Yufeng guy is quite interesting. The barrier he formed looks pretty strong. He could tell that the curtain of rain around Chang Yufeng was actually a barrier. Xiang Yiru's palm hit the barrier forcefully. It would be strange if it did not shatter. Xiang Yiru, do you really think you can win Xin Er's heart with your strength? Chang Yufeng smiled cold. He then suddenly looked at Zizhu Xin and said loudly, Miss Xin, Xiang Yiru was rude to you just now. How do you want to punish him? Kill him? Or cripple him? The arrogant voice was extremely arrogant. In Chang Yufeng's eyes, there was a faint murderous intent. When the crowd felt Chang Yufeng's killing intent, their faces changed and their expressions became complicated. They thought that Chang Yufeng and Xiang Yiru were just playing around. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, it would develop into a life and death battle? Chang Yufeng, you are too arrogant. Just then, Xiang Yiru let out a furious roar as his aura burst forth. A black wooden sword appeared in his hand as his eyes emitted a chilling aura. When Tian saw the black wooden sword in Xiang Yiru's hand, he felt a dark aura, causing his expression to change. He could tell that the black wooden sword in Xiang Yiru's hand was not made of a nascent spirit, but a kind of bloodline power. Condensing a sword with the power of his bloodline, Xiang Yiru was clearly prepared to fight to the death. Zizhu Xin was stunned. She did not expect Chang Yufeng and Xiang Yiru to have a life-and-death battle. Is this really a life-and-death battle? Chang Yufeng looked at Xiang Yiru coldly, his eyes filled with a strange glow. What do you think? Xiang Yiru was infuriated as he said in a deep voice, You forced me to use my bloodline sword. Today, you will die even if you don't. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiang Yiru's figure moved and the bloodline sword stabbed out. A black ray of light whizzed out like a bolt of black lightning, striking at Chang Yufeng. Chang Yufeng's eyes narrowed as the curtain of rain around him turned into a shield. Bang! In the next moment, the black sword ray landed but was blocked by the shield of rain. A muffled sound could be heard as the sword ray crumbled into pieces. However, Chang Yufeng's figure trembled slightly as he took a few steps back. Not bad. This is getting interesting. Chang Yufeng steadied himself, and his lips twitched as he let out a cold laugh. The crowd's eyes darkened as they witnessed this scene, their faces filled with confusion. Xiang Yiru's sword essence did not look strong. Why was it able to repel Chang Yufeng? What a strange sword essence. Tian stared at Xiang Yiru. His eyes narrowed as he was taken aback. Xiang Yiru's realm of swordsmanship was not considered strong. He was only at the advanced level of the integration of sword and martial arts. This realm was nothing to a martial artist at the peak of the half-step realm. However, Xiang Yiru's sword essence was very strange. It seemed to have a strong penetrating power and was able to penetrate through Chang Yufeng's enchanted domain and cause damage to him. Chang Yufeng's retreat was due to the impact of the sword essence. Chang Yufeng, you will die today. Xiang Yiru smiled coldly as his eyes were filled with murderous intent. His body suddenly moved, and a vast amount of sword essence gushed out from his body, turning him into a dark abyss in an instant. Boom! In the next instant, Xiang Yiru stabbed out with his sword. The bloodline sword shot out a black sword shadow that was thousands of meters long. It was like a galloping beast that went straight for Chang Yufeng. Watch out! The crowd below could not help but yell in fear. Chang Yufeng's reaction was extremely fast. The curtain of rain around him immediately condensed into 3 walls of rain that blocked in front of him. Kaboom! 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 The enormous black sword shadow was like a black dragon that soared into the sky. The 3 walls of rain in front of Chang Yufeng crumbled into pieces. Bang! In the next moment, a muffled sound could be heard as Chang Yufeng's figure was sent flying. He was then engulfed by the boundless black sword essence and disappeared without a trace. The sudden turn of events caused everyone's eyes to widen in shock. Who would have thought that Chang Yufeng's curtain of rain that looked so powerful would be so vulnerable? Zijushin was taken aback by the scene in the sky. Her face stiffened and she was speechless for a long time. Ha ha ha! Xiang Yiru's maniacal laughter could be heard from high up in the sky. His expression was extremely arrogant as he said, Chang Yufeng, you are one of the top 5 geniuses. It turns out that you are such a piece of trash. You think you can compete with me for a woman? You're seeking death. His arrogant voice echoed throughout the sky, displaying Xiang Yiru's arrogance. Nie Tian stared at the sky with a confused expression on his face. Although he was tens of thousands of meters away from Chang Yufeng, he could clearly feel that the latter's barrier was very strong. It should not have been destroyed by Xiang Yiru's sword. Chang Yufeng's strength should not be so weak. What a cunning guy. Just as Nie Tian was confused, he heard the voice of Fat Cat in his divine sense. Nie Tian was startled. His eyes flickered as he came to a realization. Xiang Yiru, go to hell. At that moment, a sinister voice could be heard from the sky. Whoosh! Following this, a sharp blade formed from a curtain of water suddenly shot out like a ghost towards Xiang Yiru. The water curtain blade was extremely eerie. It appeared in an instant and was extremely deadly. Xiang Yiru was still immersed in the joy of his victory and could not react in time. Chapter 25:01. Chapter 25:01. Chapter 25:01. Don T give face when given Hua. The water curtain blade was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was less than 100 meters away from Xiang Yiru. At such a close distance, Xiang Yiru had no chance to react. Die! Chang Yufeng's voice rang out from the void. At this moment, Chang Yufeng's face was twisted. His eyes were fierce and cold, but at the same time, he was extremely excited, as if he could already see the scene of Xiang Yiru being killed. No! When Xiang Yiru felt the aura of death descend upon him, he completely forgot to defend himself and cried out in fear. Bang! In the next moment, the water screen blade suddenly arrived and directly descended on Xiang Yiru's body. However, it emitted a muffled sound and then shattered in the air. Everyone's eyes trembled and were extremely shocked. They didn't know what was going on. Xiang Yiru clearly didn't put up any defenses. So how did he miraculously block the attack of the water curtain blades? What's going on? Not to mention the others. Even Xiang Yiru had a dumbfounded expression on his face as he asked in astonishment, how is this possible? At the same time, Chang Yufeng's silhouette appeared. His face was so dark that it was dripping blood. Look, what is on Xiang Yiru's body? After a few seconds of dead silence, someone finally reacted and pointed at Xiang Yiru, shouting in surprise. Only then did people notice that there was a white halo around Xiang Yiru's body. It was very weak and was about to disappear. Who saved me? Xiang Yiru also came to his senses at this moment. He looked at the halo armor around his body with a baffled expression and exclaimed, Kid, who are you? At this moment, Chang Yufeng spoke coldly as his gaze locked onto a silver-haired silhouette in the air. It's you. Xiang Yiru suddenly turned around and saw the face of the silver-haired figure. His eyes widened and he cried out in alarm. The person who had appeared in front of him was none other than Nie Tian. Without a doubt, the person who saved Xiang Yiru at the critical moment was Nie Tian. Xiang Yiru had never imagined that the person who saved his life would actually be Nie Tian. What? It's you? In the next moment, Xiang Yiru's eyes trembled, and his words became intermittent. For Nie Tian to save him. This was something that he had never dreamed of, because just a moment ago, he had insulted Nie Tian and called him a piece of trash in front of everyone. But now, his life was saved by Nie Tian. He could not even imagine how Nie Tian could block Chang Yufeng's attack. Are you surprised? Nie Tianling sneered and asked. Xiang Yiru's face stiffened at first. Then his eyes trembled slightly, and his expression changed in an instant. His eyes suddenly darkened, and he shouted, "Who do you think you are? Why did he save me? Do I need your help?" Hearing Xiang Yiru's words, Nie Tian's face sank, and his expression instantly turned cold. He saved Xiang Yiru, but not only did the latter not say a word of gratitude, he even questioned him. Wasn't this a typical ingrate? When the crowd below saw this scene, they were all stunned and could not wrap their heads around it. Everyone thought that Xiang Yiru would be very grateful to Nie Tian for saving his life, but they did not expect Xiang Yiru to say such a thing. Zi Zhuxin looked at Xiang Yiru with a similarly stunned expression. Although she did not usually like Xiang Yiru, she did not particularly dislike him. But now, she felt disgusted just looking at Xiang Yiru. "So I saved an ungrateful dog?" Nie Tian frowned and said coldly. He had tolerated Xiang Yiru for a long time. On one hand, he did not want to cause unnecessary trouble, and on the other hand, he felt that there was no need to lower himself to the level of an idiot. But at this moment, he could no longer tolerate it. People like Xiang Yiru were like dogs, barking at everyone as soon as they had a bit of strength, as if he was the only genius in the world and everyone else was trash. If Nie Tian had known this would be the result of him saving Xiang Yiru, he would never have saved him. "Brat, who are you calling an ungrateful dog?" Xiang Yiru's face sank as he roared furiously. "You," Nie Tian said without the slightest hesitation. "Brat, you're courting death." Xiang Yiru was startled, but he quickly collected his thoughts and let out a roar. The bloodline sword in his hand was drawn forward, and a black sword glow was fired at Nie Tian like a bolt of black lightning. Upon seeing this, Zi Zhuxin couldn't help but scream, "Watch out, Nie Tian!" She was very familiar with Xiang Yiru's strength. When Jun Ouching and the others saw this, their hearts tightened and their nerves tightened. "Since you're so shameless, you can forget about it." At that instant, Nie Tian was completely enraged. He let out a deep roar and unleashed the force of the stars from his body. At the same time, the force of the gods and demons surged and merged perfectly with the force of the stars. Whoosh! In the next instant, the starlight heavenly slash appeared in his hand. With a slash, an invisible sword intent was unleashed like a phantom. In the next instant, a strange scene took place. Puff! The sound of flesh being torn apart was heard in the air, followed by the appearance of a bloody light. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. They had no idea what was going on. My face. At that moment, a heart-wrenching scream was heard from the sky. Everyone turned to look and saw Xiang Yiru clutching his face as he screamed crazily. There was no flesh on both sides of his face. Only white bones remained. Nie Tian's slash had shaved off the skin on both sides of Xiang Yiru's face. Nie Tian had already shown his utmost tolerance towards Xiang Yiru. Unfortunately, Xiang Yiru did not want the respect he had given him, so Nie Tian could only shave off the skin on his face. In the previous slash, Nie Tian had used the Dark Star ghostly kill from the starry sky ancient martial technique, which was swift and unexpected. Most importantly, he had used the celestial demon's sword intent. At this moment, the crowd became dead silent. The entire square was filled with Xiang Yiru's heart-wrenching screams. No one had expected Nie Tian to have such terrifying strength. But he was only a late-stage paramount god. Xiang Yiru was one of the top 5 geniuses of the 10,000 Mountain sect, but Nie Tian had shaved off his face just like that. Nie Tian's strength was just too freakish. Nie Tianling looked at Xiang Yiru coldly, sneered, and turned to leave. "Hold on." Just then, another voice rang out. It was Chang Yufeng. What's the matter? Nye Tian froze and replied coldly. What's the matter? He didn't even look at Chang Yufeng. How should I address you, brother? Chang Yufeng asked politely with a faint smile on his face. The crowd was stunned at this moment, and their faces were full of surprise. Even a fool could tell that Chang Yufeng was trying to get on Nye Tian's good side. You're about the same as that shameless guy. You're both the same. Unexpectedly, Nye Tian replied cold. I don't like dealing with people like you, so you don't need to know my name. His calm voice was filled with extreme arrogance. Chapter 25:02. Overwhelming intimidation. Dead silence fell over the place as soon as Nye Tian finished his sentence. Everyone was stunned. None of them had expected that Nye Tian would respond to Chang Yufeng in such a manner. Chang Yufeng had courteously expressed his goodwill to Nye Tian in front of so many people. But Nye Tian didn't appreciate it at all, and even said that Chang Yufeng was the same kind of trash as Xiang Yiru. Wasn't that too arrogant of a response? Zi Zhuxin frowned. She had a feeling that Nye Tian was being a little impulsive because he was angry. But Nye Tian was very calm, as if he knew exactly what he was doing. Chang Yufeng had been targeting Xiang Yiru ever since he showed up. He had even resorted to crafty methods to kill the latter. How could someone like that be stronger than Xiang Yiru? More importantly, the way Chang Yufeng had looked at Zi Zhuxin was the same as Xiang Yiru's. They were both obviously up to no good. Furthermore, Chang Yufeng's arrogance wasn't any weaker than Xiang Yiru's. In fact, he was even more arrogant. Most importantly, Nye Tian knew that the reason why Chang Yufeng was friendly to him was because of his strength. If it weren't for Nye Tian's shocking strength, would Chang Yufeng be so friendly? If Nye Tian had been an ordinary late-stage paramount god, Chang Yufeng wouldn't have even looked at him, let alone expressed goodwill. There was no need to get to know someone like that. What did you say, kid? Chang Yufeng was taken aback when he heard Nye Tian's words. Then his face darkened, and he spoke in a cold tone that didn't hide his killing intent. I said that you don't deserve to know my name. Nye Tian didn't show the slightest bit of fear. He replied cold and made his attitude even more straightforward. He was now even more certain that Chang Yufeng wasn't a good person. Just because Nye Tian's response wasn't what Chang Yufeng wanted, the latter had decided to kill him. How could someone like that be a good person? Are you looking down on me, kid? Chang Yufeng asked cold, his eyes filled with killing intent. So what if I despise you? Nye Tian's attitude became even more insolent. He said in a cold tone, You're being polite to me because I'm strong. If I was weaker than you, wouldn't you still look down on me? When the crowd heard Nye Tian's words, their expressions changed slightly. They were all relatively average martial artists, and had always looked up to geniuses like Chang Yufeng. Therefore, they felt that being looked down upon by a genius like Chang Yufeng wasn't a big deal. However, Nye Tian was different. He did not provoke others, but others could not provoke him either. Brat, you're courting death. Chang Yufeng's face turned cold. He could no longer control the murderous intent in his eyes. He raised his palm and slapped out. 1,000-meter wide curtain of rain appeared and shrouded Nye Tian. Nye Tian could feel the strong, killing intent rushing towards him. His eyes narrowed as he turned around and thrust his sword forward. The sword shadows were like raging dragons, roaring and roaring. Kaboom! In the next moment, the curtain of rain and the sword shadows collided. After a loud bang, the curtain of rain crumbled and the violent sword intent was released, turning into waves of sword intent that crashed into the void. Chang Yufeng's figure was hit by the waves and was forced back a few hundred meters. He barely managed to stabilize his figure, but the clothes on his body had been torn into pieces under the impact of the sword intent, and he was in an extremely sorry state. Damn it, Chang Yufeng bellowed. Of course he knew that Nye Tian had done this on purpose to humiliate him. That was a warning. If you dare to attack again, you will end up like Xiang Yiru. Nye Tianling said coldly. Chang Yufeng's face froze, his eyes filled with fear. He did not know much about Nye Tian's strength, so he was wary of him, especially when Nye Tian sliced off Xiang Yiru's face with his sword. It was truly shocking. The crowd watched from below, their faces filled with shock. Nie Tian was too domineering. With a casual swing of his sword, not only did he force Chang Yufeng to retreat, he also intimidated the latter so much that he did not dare to act recklessly. At this moment, Nie Tian did not say anything more. He turned around and was ready to leave. "You are very strong. Would you mind teaching me a thing or two?" However, at this moment, a deep voice rang out from the sky. Boom! Immediately, a violent shadow of a palm descended from the sky and slammed towards Nie Tian. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he raised his arm and thrust his sword forward. The shadow of the sword shot up into the sky. Kaboom! A muffled sound was heard as the shadow of the palm and the shadow of the sword collided. A terrifying force spread out and wreaked havoc in the air. Nie Tian was as steady as a mountain as he stood in the air, his gaze fixed on the sky. At this moment, a white-robed figure descended from the sky, his deep eyes fixed on Nie Tian. The person who had just attacked was this man in white. The man in white had a delicate appearance and handsome facial features. Although his eyes were deep, it was difficult to conceal his heroic spirit. He gave off a strong sense of justice, as if his face had the words, "I represent justice." Nie Tian's eyes darkened as he sensed the man with his divine sense. This man in white was also a half-peak expert, and his aura seemed to be slightly stronger than Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng, comparable to the strength of the three venerables. However, this man was not old. In fact, he was even younger than Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. Based on his bone age, he was only a few thousand years old. This man had the strength of a half-peak expert before he was 10,000 years old. His talent was insane. In terms of strength, this man in white might be on par with Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. However, in terms of talent, this man was undoubtedly a lot stronger than the latter two. Su Qianfan, Xiang Yiru, and Chang Yufeng exclaimed at the same time when they saw the man in white. Although Xiang Yiru had lost his face, he was not seriously injured. It was just that he would have to live a shameless life for the next few months. "It's Su Qianfan." The crowd below also exclaimed in shock. Their eyes were burning with passion. "Looks like he's another genius." Seeing the crowd's reaction, Nie Tian could not help but smile bitterly. He was right. Su Qianfan was like Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. He was also one of the top 5 geniuses of the 10,000 Mountain sect. However, the difference was that Su Qianfan was more famous than Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. Not only was Su Qianfan more talented, but he also had another identity: Purple Bamboo, Wolf Seven's disciple. Some people even believed that Su Qianfan could be the next sect leader. This was because Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 did not have a son. He only had a daughter, Zijushin. However, Zijushin's talent was not top-notch, and it would be difficult for her to support the 10,000 Mountain sect in the future. Therefore, the next sect leader of the 10,000 Mountain sect was likely to be Su Qianfan. Su Qianfan's appearance caused the crowd to become excited. Su Qianfan is here. Is he going to participate in the path to heaven? Su Qianfan is so young. Is he in a hurry to participate in the path to heaven? That's right. Both of his senior brothers failed at the last step of the path to heaven. Will he succeed? As the crowd discussed, the focus of the crowd was instantly shifted to Su Qianfan. Su Qianfan was the youngest among the top 5 geniuses. Many people thought that he would not participate in the path to heaven. Chapter 25:03. Leaving his face, Su Qianfan hovered in the air, unsheathing a sharp sword. At this moment, he didn't pay any attention to the discussions of the crowd. Instead, he fixed his piercing gaze on Nie Tian. Not interested, Nie Tian shot a cold glance at Su Qianfan. With a cold laugh, he turned around and left. Of course, he was not afraid of Su Qianfan. He simply felt that there was no need to fight him. Moreover, Su Qianfan's attack was obviously a test, not a sneak attack on Nie Tian. From this point of view, Su Qianfan was not bad. At least, he was better than Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. Apparently, Su Qianfan hadn't expected Nie Tian to react in such a way. His eyes narrowed, and his face grew grim. He wanted to challenge Nie Tian, but the latter did not accept the challenge and replied that he was not interested. Su Qianfan could not accept it. Wait. Once again, Su Qianfan pointed at Xiang Yiru and said, "Did you shave his face?" "So what if I did?" Nie Tian replied calmly with a smile. "If you did, then you must accept the challenge." Su Qianfan said cold, clearly furious. "Humph." Nie Tian frowned, then laughed and said, "What if I don't accept the challenge? Then leave your face behind." Su Qianfan's eyes were cold and murderous. "Oh." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth curled up into a playful smile. He could tell that Su Qianfan was here to seek justice for Xiang Yiru and the others. It was obvious that Su Qianfan regarded Nie Tian as an arrogant person. "Senior brother Su, it's not what you think." At this moment, Zijou Xin's figure suddenly appeared, and she said anxiously, "Junior sister Xinair, why are you here? Didn't Master forbid you from participating in the path to heaven?" Su Qianfan's face darkened when he saw Zijou Xin. Zijou Xin's face froze. Then she said, "We'll talk about it later. Now listen carefully, you can't attack Nie Tian." "Why?" Su Qianfan's expression was gloomy, and he said in a cold tone, "This man was vicious. He used his sword intent to cut off Xiang Yiru's face. Shouldn't I attack him?" It was Xiang Yiru who provoked Nie Tian first. Zijou Xin's beautiful eyes flickered as she said loudly, "Provoke?" Su Qianfan's eyes darkened, and he said fiercely, "We're all from the same sect. Are you going to embarrass me just because of a provocation?" After saying that, he looked at Xiang Yiru and said, "As far as I know, Xiang Yiru isn't someone who randomly provokes others. I've known him for so long, but why hasn't he provoked me before?" This, Zijou Xian's expression stiffened, and she was at a loss for words. In front of Su Qianfan, Xiang Yiru's attitude was indeed humble and gentle. Nie Tian was speechless when he heard what Su Qianfan said. Xiang Yiru wanted to provoke Su Qianfan, but did he dare to? "Brother Su, you have to uphold justice for me. You know what kind of person I am. How could I casually provoke others?" At this time, Xiang Yiru walked over and shouted in agitation while covering his pale, exposed face. "Xiang Yiru, you're shameless." Zijou Xin shouted at Xiang Yiru. How could she not see that Xiang Yiru was trying to provoke a battle between Nie Tian and Su Qianfan? "Brother Xiang, don't worry. As long as I, Su Qianfan, am here, no one will be allowed to be arrogant here." Su Qianfan nodded firmly and said, "Anyone who dares to be arrogant will pay the price." Nie Tian was speechless when he saw Su Qianfan's righteous expression. Su Qianfan was obviously cultivating every day, completely unaware of how unpredictable a person's heart was. At this time, Su Qianfan frowned and looked at Nie Tian and said in a deep voice, "You dared to cut off Xiang Yiru's face, but you don't dare to accept my challenge. Are you afraid?" Nie Tian smiled bitterly in his heart, and then his eyes flickered, and he suddenly asked, "You're a swordsman? You're also a swordsman." Su Qianfan nodded and said directly, "Since we're both swordsmen, let's have a battle of sword wills. If I win, you'll have to apologize to Xiang Yiru, and you'll have to accept any punishment he wants." "What if I win?" Nie Tian asked with a smile. "You're only a swordsman at the advanced level of unity of sword and martial arts. There's no way you can beat me," Su Qianfan said in a deep voice, very confident. Nie Tian could not help but smile and said, "You know I can't win, but you still want to compete with me in sword wills. Aren't you bullying me?" Su Qianfan's face froze when he heard Nie Tian's words, and then said, "You injured Xiang Yiru, so aren't you bullying him too? Now, you just need to answer me. Are you willing to compete with me in sword wills?" Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and a faint smile appeared on his face, and he said, "Are you sure you want to compete with me in sword wills?" "Yes." Su Qianfan nodded firmly, and his face was full of determination. "All right." Nie Tian smiled faintly. He moved his palm, and a gust of sword wills gushed out of his palm. He said, "Then let's use the simplest method." "Sure." Su Qianfan smiled faintly, and he also moved his palm, releasing a gust of sword wills. The crowd looked at the scene in the sky, and many of them were very confused. They did not know what Nye Tian and Su Qianfan were doing. At this moment, Nye Tian and Su Qianfan were not competing in strength, but sword wills. The method for swordsmen to compete with sword wills was very simple. They only needed to release sword wills, without using sword techniques, bloodline power, or any other power. They only used sword wills. Are you ready? Nye Tian said faintly, and his eyes flashed with a sharp light. Begin. Su Qianfan's lips twitched. He raised his palm and suddenly slammed it out. The sword wills condensed into a small sword shadow, and it flew towards Nye Tian. At the same time, the sword wills gushed out of Nye Tian's palm. Bang! The two sword shadows collided in the air, and after a muffled sound, they disappeared at the same time. Nye Tian saw this scene and smiled faintly. However, Su Qianfan's expression was very surprised and even a little horrified. In the clash of sword wills just now, he was actually on par with Nye Tian. This result was very strange to him. He was a swordsman at the peak of the unity of sword martial arts, while Nye Tian was only an advanced swordsman. Moreover, his sword wills were definitely very powerful. Even if he were to fight against some legendary swordsman, he would not be inferior. But now, he was only on par with a swordsman of a lower realm than him. This was somewhat unacceptable to him. The crowd below was even more dumbfounded, and they did not know what had happened. They only saw the two sword shadows collide and disappear at the same time. Then, Su Qianfan was extremely shocked. After a full 10 seconds, Su Qianfan slightly calmed down and asked in a deep voice, "How can your sword wills be so strong?" "Your sword wills are not weak either," Nye Tian replied with a faint smile. In fact, Su Qianfan did not know that the sword wills that Nye Tian used just now were not his strongest sword wills. Nye Tian's strongest sword wills were the God Fiend sword wills, but it required the cooperation of the God Fiend force, so it could not be used in the sword wills competition. Su Qianfan's sword wills were already very strong. If it was an ordinary swordsman at the peak of the unity of sword martial arts, his sword wills would be completely crushed by Nye Tian. "Su Qianfan, now that our sword wills are on par, what do you think we should do?" Nye Tian asked with a faint smile. "Brother Su, my face." As soon as he finished speaking, Xiang Yiru pointed at his skeletal face and said pitifully. Chapter 2504. Chapter 254. New Yorka head-on battle. As soon as Su Qianfan finished speaking, the sword will in his body surged like a raging sea, surging and surging. Nye Tian's eyes flickered as he looked at Su Qianfan. He was very surprised by the latter's strength. Although Su Qianfan was only at the peak of the unity of sword and martial arts, his sword essence was stronger than ordinary legendary swordsmen. In the next moment, Nye Tian's eyes grew grim as he asked coldly, "Su Qianfan, do you really want to fight me?" "Of course," Su Qianfan replied loudly. "Unless you apologize to Xiang Yiru and accept any punishment he gives you. Then let's fight," Nye Tian said coldly, his eyes grim. He would never apologize to Xiang Yiru, let alone accept his punishment. Considering Xiang Yiru's personality, if he had the chance to punish Nye Tian, he would have killed him. "Nye Tian, I admit that your sword intent is very strong, but a real battle is completely different from a battle of sword intent," Su Qianfan said in a deep voice. The sword intent around his body surged in the air, vigorous and vast. "Make your move." Nye Tian did not say anything else. Starlight Heaven Slash appeared in his hand, and his sword essence surged. "Stubborn, you're courting death." Su Qianfan let out a bellow as he raised his longsword. In an instant, boundless sword intent surged out of his sword and condensed into a sword shadow that bore down on Nye Tian. Nye Tian was not afraid. He stabbed out with his sword, and the sword shadow whistled like a dragon. Boom! High up in the sky, the two sword shadows collided with a loud bang. The sword will instantly exploded and circulated in the void. Nye Tian and Su Qianfan retreated hundreds of meters at the same time and steadied themselves. "These two people are so strong," the crowd exclaimed in unison when they saw this scene. They did not expect Nye Tian to be so strong that he could fight Su Qianfan head-on. "Not bad. Again." Su Qianfan was stunned at first, but then he laughed and attacked with his sword again. Suddenly, the space within tens of thousands of meters in the air was filled with a majestic sword essence. The void trembled. The crowd raised their heads and looked at him in shock. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian and Su Qianfan had already exchanged a few dozen blows, but it was difficult to determine the victor. How could he be so powerful? Su Qianfan steadied himself, unable to conceal the shock in his eyes. After exchanging dozens of swords, he felt that Nie Tian's sword intent wasn't any weaker than his. In fact, it was even stronger. He had originally thought that even if Nie Tian was on par with him in terms of sword intent, Nie Tian would definitely not be a match for him in actual combat. After all, a competition of sword intent and an actual battle were completely different. Although he did not go all out, the strength he revealed could completely suppress an ordinary peak half-step powerhouse. If his opponent was Xiang Yiru or Chang Yufeng, he would have lost long ago. However, not only did Nie Tian not show any signs of defeat, but he even dealt with it with ease. He could even sense that Nie Tian was not going all out and was holding back. "Senior brother Su, it's not what you think. Stop." Zi Zhuxin, who was at the side, shouted. She was worried that if Nie Tian and Su Qianfan continued to fight, it would develop to the point of life and death. However, Su Qianfan had no intention of stopping. Instead, the sword essence in his body surged again. Is he going to use his true strength? Seeing that, Nie Tian's lips twitched slightly, but his expression was indifferent. How could he not feel that Su Qianfan had not used his true strength all along? It seemed that Su Qianfan had underestimated him from the beginning. A single tree makes a forest. In the next moment, Su Qianfan roared and swung his sword. A sword shadow rushed towards Nie Tian like the wind and lightning. Feeling that the sword shadow before him was strange, Nie Tian could not help but narrow his eyes. Subsequently, the sword shadow in the air underwent a shocking change. The sword shadow split into 2, then into 4, and then into 8. In the blink of an eye, there were tens of thousands of sword shadows. Like a sky full of sharp arrows, they connected into a net of sword shadows and enveloped Nie Tian. "Su Qianfan, this is your true strength, right?" Nie Tian smiled faintly. He turned the long sword in his hand and swung it wildly. He roared, "8 Desolation Sword." Boom! Suddenly, the sword shadow was like a rolling torrent, sweeping away thousands of dust. Boom! In the next moment, there was a mighty roar in the air. The sword shadows collapsed in the air, turned into sword chi, and dissipated. The figures of Nie Tian and Su Qianfan were hit by the sword essence and retreated 1,000 meters at the same time. Su Qianfan steadied himself. His eyes suddenly darkened, and his eyes were filled with surprise. He did not expect that Nie Tian could even block this move. He had used the innumerable wood sword technique just now. Nie Tian steadied himself, and he was also very surprised. Su Qianfan deserved to be called a monstrous genius. The power of this move was more terrifying than the previous dozens of moves combined. "Very good. Try my move again." At this moment, Su Qianfan's eyes trembled, and his face showed a happy expression. He shouted loudly, "Innumerable wood sword technique, 100 trees greet the spring." As soon as he finished speaking, the sword in his hand slashed down with a loud bang. A sword shadow poured down like a waterfall from the ninth heaven, blossoming with blinding sword light as it pressed down on Nie Tian with a loud rumble. So powerful! At this moment, the crowd's eyes suddenly trembled, and they all exclaimed. Even though they were standing on the ground, they could still feel the terrifying power of Su Qianfan's sword momentum. The surging momentum was frightening. Su Qianfan's strength and talent were indeed far above Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. Human sword cutting the stars. High up in the sky, Nie Tian sensed the overwhelming sword aura rushing towards him. Not daring to be careless, he slashed out madly with his sword. His sword intent instantly condensed into a heaven-shaking sword shadow, which whizzed out with a loud whoosh. Boom! In an instant, the two huge sword shadows collided with each other like wild beasts, and a deafening roar sounded, shaking the heavens and the earth. The space within 100,000 meters trembled, as if time and space had stopped in an instant. Bang! In the next moment, the endless sword essence suddenly exploded, and countless terrifying sword waves that could be seen with the naked eye appeared in the air. With the point of collision as the center, the sword waves spread wildly in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying sword essence roared into space like a raging wave. Su Qianfan and Nie Tian retreated at the same time. The wings of the astral soul appeared behind Nie Tian's back, and with a flap of the wings, he moved like a bolt of lightning and retreated 1,000 meters away. Although he used the human sword cutting the stars, he did not use the sword essence of the celestial demon. There was no enmity between him and Su Qianfan, so there was no need for him to fight to the death. However, at the moment when Yetian had not yet stabilized his body, he suddenly felt two fierce and chilling forces attacking him, and he could not help but frown. Die! Go to hell! Then, two incomparably fierce voices sounded, and two terrifying forces blasted toward Yetian. A black sword shadow and a water-screen sharp blade attacked from different directions, but they were all targeting the same target. Yetian, Xiang Yiru, Chan Yufeng. The crowd below exclaimed at the same time when they heard the two voices. Chapter 2505. Sophistry. Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng had only been watching the fight, but when they saw that Nie Tian and Su Qianfan were locked in a stalemate, they couldn't help but feel vile. And so, the two of them couldn't hold back any longer and attacked at the same time. They were certain that Nie Tian wouldn't be able to fight back and would be killed. Boom! Boom! Two ultimate moves, carrying the aura of death, violently attacked. Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng were both peak half-step experts, so it was only natural that they would go all out in a sneak attack. If Nie Tian was hit by one of the two attacks, he would be severely injured, even if he didn't die. Everyone's eyes darkened, and their faces filled with shock. Everyone was certain that Nie Tian was going to die, without a doubt. It was as if they could already see Nie Tian being blasted to death. Bone-eroding, soul-shackling chains go. At the moment of life and death, Nie Tian did not panic. With a low roar, the cursed shackles surged out of his body and condensed in a 9-bone, eroding soul-shackling chains that wrapped around his body, forming a soul-refining shield. Bam! Bam! The two attacks landed almost at the same time, and two muffled sounds rang out. Boom! Crack! 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 The bone-eroding soul shackle shattered inch by inch, and Nie Tian was sent flying backward. A moment later, Nie Tian stabilized himself. The bone-eroding soul-shackling chains were completely destroyed, but he was completely unharmed. The crowd gasped when they saw this. They were shocked to the extreme. This scene was simply too shocking and unbelievable. Nie Tian had been ambushed by two peak half-step experts, and yet he had miraculously blocked it. He wasn't injured at all. After all, he was only a late-stage paramount god. How is this possible? Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng were stunned at the same time. They exclaimed in shock. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Never in their wildest dreams had they imagined that Nie Tian would be able to block their sneak attack just now. You two, you're courting death. At this time, Nie Tian's eyes were locked onto Yiru and Chang Yufeng. He spoke coldly, filled with killing intent. Bastard, who told you to sneak attack? On the other side, Su Qianfan's voice rang out. He let out a furious roar, and his eyes burned with fury. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, leaving him with no time to react. He did not expect Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng to ambush him at the same time. At this moment, he finally understood how terrifying Nie Tian was. If he had been the one who had been ambushed just now, he might not have died, but he would definitely have been seriously injured. On the other hand, Nie Tian easily blocked Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng's sneak attack and was unharmed. Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng were taken aback. Their mouths were agape, but no words came out. The two of them had ambushed someone in public and failed. They were so embarrassed. I didn't want to kill anyone, but you kept forcing me. You can't blame me for this. At this moment, Nietion's voice rang out. He took a step forward, and the sword intent around his body surged to the extreme. You want to kill us? Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng could feel the murderous intent surrounding Nietion. They exchanged glances, and their voices began to tremble. You're the ones courting death. Nietion growled. He stepped forward, and the starry sky slash in his hand slashed down. The sword's shadow was sharp, and it landed with a loud bang. Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng were stunned. They stood rooted to the ground and could not react for a long time. Actually, with their strength, if they joined forces to fight against Nietion, they might stand a chance. However, it was a pity that they were afraid. Boom! The sword's shadow whizzed down, and a terrifying chi filled the air. If the sword were to land, Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng would definitely die. Stop! Just then, a loud voice rang out in the air. Then, a hand seal appeared in the air and blocked Nietion's fatal attack. Eyebrows furrowed, Nietion looked up into the sky and saw a black-robed old man standing in the distance. The elder in black robes had a powerful aura around him, and it was obvious that he was a cultivator at the peak of the immortal state. At that moment, the elder in black robes was glaring at Nietion with a pair of murderous eyes. Elder Chang. Right at that moment, another voice rang out. Another old man appeared, and his aura was not the slightest bit weaker than the other elder. Elder Xiang. The old man called Elder Chang nodded slightly and replied in a low voice. However, his vicious eyes never left Nietion the whole time. Grandpa! Grandpa! In the next second, two yells were heard. It was Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. Nietion's expression flickered as he realized that these two elders were Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng's grandfathers. The 10,000 Mountain sect was indeed powerful. The first sect leader and third elder that Nietion had seen before were both at the peak of the immortal state. Elder Chang and Elder Xiang were also at the peak of the immortal state. It was not an exaggeration to say that the 10,000 Mountain sect alone was enough to crush the 9 major realms. Fourth elder, fifth elder. At that moment, Su Qianfan's voice was heard. He looked surprised and panicked at the same time. The two elders were Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng's grandfathers. Fourth elder was Xiang Yiru's grandfather, Xiang Qingshan. Fifth elder was Chang Yufeng's grandfather, Chang Kuan. Xiang Qingshan and Chang Kuan's faces darkened. They looked at Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng with pity and anger. Xiang Yiru, what happened to your face? Xiang Qingshan was the first to speak. Grandpa, my face was shaved off by that brat called Nietion. You have to stand up for me. Xiang Yiru wailed in front of everyone. Brat, you're ruthless. Xiang Yiru's face darkened. He looked at Nietion coldly and said, How could you be so ruthless to a fellow disciple? Ruthless? Nietion Lung replied with a smile. There was no fear in his eyes. He said loudly, You say I'm ruthless, but you don't know that your precious grandson is even more ruthless. If my strength was weaker than his, I'm afraid I would have died a long time ago. He knew that Xiang Qingshan came with ill intentions. It was obvious that he wanted to avenge Xiang Yiru. Moreover, what he did to Xiang Yiru seemed very ruthless, but he was actually very restrained. Xiang Yiru had provoked him many times. If it were anyone else, Nietion would have killed them long ago. Sophistry. Xiang Qingshan growled cold. He said, You beat and humiliated a fellow disciple. This is a serious offense against the sect's rules. I can kill you right now. Is that so? Nietion Lung laughed. He said, Then why don't you ask me why I shaved off Xiang Yiru's face? Chapter 2506. Turning the truth upside down, the two elders questioned Nietion at the same time. Their attitudes were very rude, and they didn't ask for the reason at all. From the fierce look in their eyes, it was obvious that they wished they could kill Nietion. So what if I'm an elder? Nietion sneered and said, Don't tell me that an elder can slander others at will without asking about right and wrong. Do I have to kneel and talk to an elder in front of me? Facing Xiang Qingshan and Chang Kuan, Nie Tian wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was very tough. Kid, which sect are you from? How dare you be so arrogant after beating up a fellow sect member? Xiang Qingshan's face was dark as he asked angrily. After all, there were so many disciples watching. As an elder of the main sect, if he directly attacked Nie Tian, it would be beneath his status. However, Xiang Yiru's face had been slashed, so he obviously wouldn't let this matter rest. Therefore, he had to make Nie Tian admit his guilt and receive punishment. Which sect I'm from has nothing to do with you. However, Nie Tian's response was very tough. He directly said, if you really want to uphold justice, then you should properly ask what your good grandson has done. Xiang Qingshan's face darkened. He glanced at Xiang Yiru and the anger in his heart grew. The Xiang clan was very powerful in the 10,000 Mountain sect. Even the sect leader had to be respectful to him. But now, Xiang Yiru's face had been slashed in front of everyone by a disciple of some unknown sect. How could he not be angry? Kid, I'll let you explain yourself. What exactly happened? Xiang Qingshan said in a deep voice as he stared coldly at Nie Tian. Fine, since you want to hear it so badly, I'll tell you. Nie Tian frowned and said loudly, I was just talking to Miss Zijushin. When Xiang Yiru arrived, he humiliated me. I tolerated him and didn't argue with him. However, he forcefully dragged Miss Zijushin away, and Chang Yufeng saw it. Then, Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng started fighting for no apparent reason. Xiang Yiru was almost killed by Chang Yufeng. I was the one who saved him. But not only did he not thank me, he even tried to kill me. I was forced to retaliate and cut off the skin of his face. That's how it is. At this point, Nie Tian suddenly raised his voice and said, Elder Xiang, do you think it's too much to peel off the skin of this kind of person who returns kindness with enmity? Xiang Qingshan's old face darkened to the point where it looked like blood was about to drip out of it. He turned to look at Xiang Yiru, who immediately lowered his head. This made him understand that Nie Tian was telling the truth. On the other side, Su Qianfan came to Zijushin's side and whispered, Junior Sister Exen, is what Nie Tian said true? Zijushin nodded and looked at Nie Tian with a troubled expression. It seems that I was confused. Su Qianfan frowned and sighed. I didn't expect Xiang Yiru to be such a person. He had always been focused on cultivation and did not have much understanding of the evil of people. In a moment of impulse, he wronged Nie Tian, and he was very regretful. Kid, what you said, how do you prove it? At this time, Xiang Qingshan laughed lowly and asked in a cold tone. So many people here saw it with their own eyes. Does that count as proof? Nie Tian did not expect Xiang Qingshan to be so shameless. His face darkened and he growled. Is that so? Xiang Qingshan sneered and his eyes darkened. He swept his gaze across everyone and said, they were so far away. Did they really see it clearly? As his low voice fell, the scene instantly became dead silent. Everyone noticed Xiang Qingshan's threatening gaze and quickly avoided it. Many people lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. Nie Tian saw that Xiang Qingshan actually dared to openly threaten everyone here, and his face darkened. He did not expect that an elder like Xiang Qingshan would be shameless to this extent. I can prove it. At this time, a figure stood out. It was Zijushin, and she loudly said, I saw it with my own eyes. Nie Tian saved Xiang Yiru, but Xiang Yiru wanted to kill him. Nie Tian had no choice but to cut off Xiang Yiru's face. When Xiang Qingshan saw that the person who spoke was Zijushin, his old face darkened, and he coldly asked, Young Lady Imperial Clan Head, are you sure you saw it clearly? Replying to Fourth Elder, Exeter, I saw it clearly. Zijushin firmly nodded her head with a firm expression. Xiang Qingshan could threaten the other disciples, but he could not threaten Zijushin. Young Lady Imperial Clan Head, I'm afraid you did not see it clearly. At this time, Fifth Elder Chang Kuan suddenly stood out and said with a strange expression, Young Lady Imperial Clan Head, your strength is not weak, but compared to Xiang Yiru and the others, you are still lacking. Therefore, there are some things that you might not be able to see. Fights between experts often have their own mysteries. Some moves that look like they're meant to kill can be used to save someone, while others that look like they are meant to save someone can be used to kill. This elder believes that Xiang Yiru would not kill someone for no reason. There must be a reason why he wanted to kill this brat. This elder speculated that this brat's so-called saving Xiang Yiru was actually trying to kill him, thus angering Xiang Yiru. Having said that, Chang Kuin's gaze turned to Xiang Yiru. Xiang Yiru, do you think this elder is right? Yes, that's right. Xiang Yiru quickly reacted and nodded his head. Nie Tian frowned at this scene, his expression darkening to the extreme. He originally thought that Xiang Qingshan was shameless enough, but Chang Kuin was even more shameless, forcefully turning black into white and a mouse into a cat. Chang Yufeng, you should have seen it the clearest when you fought with Xiang Yiru. Why don't you tell me what happened? Chang Kuin then looked at Chang Yufeng and said in a mocking tone, Yes. Chang Yufeng, of course, was not a fool. After nodding his head, he said, I was only sparring with Brother Xiang. How could I kill him? This brat named Nie Tian. I don't know why he suddenly rushed up and tried to kill Brother Xiang. Brother Xiang was fighting with me at the time. He was careless and was ambushed by him. Thus his face was cut off. Having said that, Chang Yufeng solemnly asked Xiang Yiru, Brother Xiang, this is what happened, right? Yes, that's what happened. Xiang Yiru nodded his head like a rattle drum. This brat is too despicable. He dared to ambush me and cut off my face. When the crowd heard the words of Xiang Yiru's group, they were all stunned, their faces lifeless. Xiang Qingshan, Chang Kun, Xiang Yiru, and Chang Yufeng. The four of them spoke eloquently, turning black and white upside down. You guys! Zizhu Xin was dumbfounded, her small mouth wide open, completely at a loss for words. How could she have imagined that Chang Kuin and the others would collude together and directly make Nie Tian the one who ambushed them? At this time, Xiang Qingshan laughed cold and loudly said, Stinking brat, what else do you have to say now? Not only did you ambush a fellow disciple, but you also used a vicious method to cut off his face. You even framed him and inverted right and wrong in front of everyone. Just these two things alone are enough for this elder to kill you in front of everyone. Chapter 25:07. Nie Tian, enraged. Nie Tian's expression was as grim as ever as he faced Xiang Qingshan's murderous aura. At this point, he really had nothing to say. The other party was already shameless to his grandmother's house. What else could he say? The four of them cut a sorry figure as they tried to turn black and white into black, reversing right and wrong. All of the onlookers were mute and didn't even dare to let out a fart. It didn't matter what Nie Tian said now. Xiang Qingshan and the others were out to kill him. I advise you to be sensible, boy, Xiang Qingshan said, glaring at Nie Tian with a murderous glare. Surrender and accept your punishment. That way you might be spared. If that's the case, then let's fight, Nie Tian said, his eyes blazing with fury. Now that things had come to this, Nie Tian wasn't the type of person who wouldn't fight back. Even if he was facing a peak God Realm expert, he wouldn't be afraid. It wasn't like he had never fought a peak God Realm expert before. Before coming to the Icebound Ruins, he had fought two peak God Realm experts at the same time. Nie Tian let out a furious roar as sword intent burst forth from his entire body. It surged and surged like a mighty tide. This time he was truly enraged. The space tens of thousands of meters around him shook slightly. Under the surge of sword intent, a powerful sword momentum spread in all directions. So strong, everyone in the square could sense Nie Tian's sword will, and couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Never could they have imagined that Nie Tian would be able to unleash such a terrifying sword will. Sensing the momentum of Nie Tian's sword, Xiang Qingshan's eyes narrowed slightly. Obviously, he was very surprised. However, in the next moment, he calmed down and growled coldly. You're courting death, you brat. It didn't matter how strong Nie Tian was. He was only a late paramount god. In Xiang Qingshan's opinion, it was absolutely impossible for Nie Tian to contend against him. When Su Qianfan saw Nie Tian's sword aura from afar, his gaze couldn't help but tremble, and he said in his heart, So his strength is actually so strong. Su Qianfan had been holding back when he fought against Nie Tian. However, he did not expect that Nie Tian had actually held back even more strength. At this moment, the aura that Nie Tian revealed was not weaker than any peak half-step powerhouse. Boy, you surprised me. Unfortunately, even if you have the battle strength of a half-step peak, you're still trash in front of me. Xiang Qingshan let out a cold roar as his aura surged. Waves of incomparably violent aura wreaked havoc in the air. Kill! In the next moment, Xiang Qingshan roared fiercely, and ferocious killing intent abruptly filled the air. His figure blurred into motion as he slapped his palm down. In the next moment, a 10,000-meter-long hand seal appeared in midair. Like an enormous mountain, it descended from the heavens, emanating a fierce aura that pressed down on Nie Tian. He's finished. Everyone in the crowd felt their hearts clench and their faces fell. Xiang Qingshan was clearly going all out with this palm strike, and was clearly trying to take Nie Tian's life. He was an elder, and yet he was making a move against a disciple in front of so many people. That was a very shameless act. Crap, Su Qianfan blurted, his pupils constricting, and his face turning as white as a sheet of paper. Never could he have guessed that Xiang Qingshan would actually kill Nie Tian. He had assumed that Xiang Qingshan was just going to teach Nie Tian a lesson. Never could he have guessed that he would actually kill Nie Tian. He reckoned that even he wouldn't be able to withstand such a terrifying palm. As for Nie Tian, it was a sure kill move. How could a late paramount god possibly stand up to the full power of a peak god realm expert? Shameless bastard, Xiang Qingshan said. Don't even think about keeping your face. Right at this moment, Nie Tian suddenly let out a fierce roar, and a terrifying sword intent surged out of his body. Wild power was released, majestic and terrifying. What is he doing? Seeing this scene, the crowd's expression changed abruptly, and their expressions were extremely shocked. Never in a million years could they have imagined that Nie Tian would face Xiang Qingshan's palm strike head-on. A late paramount god fighting a peak god realm expert? Wasn't that just courting death? However, Nie Tian was incomparably ferocious and fearless. The sword will and blood chi in his body surged, and the power of the sword was pushed to the extreme. At the same time, the power of the gods and demons in his body was released. Earth Sword, Moon Devourer. In the next moment, Nie Tian let out a low roar and thrust out the star heaven slash. Instantly, a blood-colored sword shadow appeared and bombarded the floating hand in midair. The power of this sword strike was the strongest power Nie Tian could unleash at this moment. The Devil God Sword Will and the Earth Sword, Moon Devourer were enough to fight a peak god realm expert. At the same time, Nie Tian also made his move. He actually dashed out together with the sword shadow. Rumble. Crack. In the next instant, the floating handprint collided with the fiend celestial sword projection. A loud boom rang out, and a crack appeared on the floating handprint. Now's the time. Upon seeing this, Nie Tian's eyes widened. Disregarding the terrifying shockwaves around him, a pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back as he charged forward. His figure was extremely fast, like a ray of light. What? Xiang Qingshan's expression flickered, as if he had sensed that something was wrong. However, it was too late for him to react. Devil's Eye opened. At that moment, Nie Tian's right eye flickered and a black ray of light surged out. In an instant, the dark aura surged out and filled the space within a few thousand meters. Puff! The next moment, before Xiang Qingshan could react, the black ray of light flashed past his eyes, and he cried out in pain. The sky was filled with crazy airwaves. The crowd couldn't see Nie Tian and Xiang Qingshan, so they didn't know what had happened. PSSSD, 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 PSSSD. The air was filled with ear-piercing noises. After a long time, the airwaves in the sky dissipated and two figures appeared. When they saw the two silhouettes clearly, everyone's expression instantly turned sluggish. They were so shocked that they could not believe what they were seeing. Nie Tian stood still, Blood trickled down the corner of his mouth, and his face was pale. However, his breathing was steady, and he wasn't seriously injured. Xiang Qingshan, on the other hand, was in a sorry state. His face was no longer visible. His flesh and blood had been shaved off, leaving only white bones. It was exactly the same as Xiang Yiru's face. If his face was still there, it would be uglier than a face of white bones. The crowd was completely shocked by the scene in front of them, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. It was hard to imagine that Niet Tian not only blocked Xiang Qingshan's palm, but also counterattacked and shaved off Xiang Qingshan's face. First shaving off Xiang Yiru's face, then Xiang Qingshan's face. Niet Tian obviously did it on purpose. He wanted the Xiang family's grandfather and grandson to suffer the same humiliation. Chapter 2508. Overbearing. The scene was dead silent, and the atmosphere was suffocating. After a long time, Xiang Qingshan's figure, which was like a wooden statue, finally moved. Ah! Xiang Qingshan lifted his head and roared like a wild beast, as if he had gone mad. At this moment, Xiang Qingshan was indeed going mad. He was a warrior at the peak of the immortal realm, an elder of the sect master of the 10,000-layer mountain, a superior expert. However, under the watchful eyes of so many people, a junior, a weakling that he didn't even want to look at, had cut off his face. How could he swallow such a great humiliation? At this moment, Xiang Qingshan's aura surged crazily, as if he was a tall mountain or a vast ocean, majestic and boundless. Mad. The crowd was dumbfounded after seeing this. Their eyes trembled and their voices changed. Niet Tian sliced off Xiang Qingshan's face, causing him to go mad. Niet Tian's eyebrows furrowed slightly as his pupils constricted. As a matter of fact, he seemed to have gained the upper hand in this exchange, but the one who was truly at a disadvantage was himself. He had used the moon-devouring earth sword, which consumed a large amount of his blood and qi. He had also used the demon's eye, paying a heavy price. Although Xiang Qingshan's face had been sliced off, it only looked bad on the surface. He was not injured at all. Most importantly, Xiang Qingshan was on the verge of going berserk. He would not stop until he killed Qin Wentian. Die. At that very moment, Xiang Qingshan made his move. Like a mad beast, he roared and charged towards Niet Tian, emanating a violent aura. Niet Tian's expression flickered slightly as he instantly felt a tremendous pressure bearing down on him, as if an enormous, invisible beast were crushing down on him. A pair of astral soul wings appeared on his back. When the wings spread open, they spanned over 1,000 meters. With a shake, he retreated a few thousand meters. His speed was fast, but Xiang Qingshan was faster. Little bastard, go to hell! Xiang Qingshan roared crazily as he struck out with his palms, each more terrifying than the last. They were like mountains crashing down on Niet Tian. How terrifying! The crowd below saw this scene, and their eyes trembled as they cried out. Xiang Qingshan had completely gone mad. He was determined to kill Niet Tian. Niet Tian was hindered by the immense pressure, and his speed slowed significantly. It was impossible for him to dodge Xiang Qingshan's attack. After all, an expert at the peak of the god state was not someone he could fight against now. Stop! However, just as the gigantic handprints were about to land on Niet Tian, a clear voice rang out. Then, a gentle force descended from the sky and transformed into an invisible hand that pulled Niet Tian out of that space. Niet Tian steadied himself and looked up to see a beautiful face. It was none other than the seventh sect lord, Violet Bamboo, Flowing Mist. His figure flashed, his speed increasing, and he instantly arrived beside Purple Bamboo, Flowing Mist. Who's that? The crowd was shocked by the sudden turn of events, and they all looked at Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist and shouted in surprise. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist had appeared just in time. If she had arrived a moment later, Niet Tian really wouldn't have known what he would have done. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. Xiang Qingshan steadied himself, and his bony face was filled with shock. He immediately shouted out, "Purple Bamboo flowing mist name. Although he was currently in a state of rage, facing purple bamboo flowing mist, he was still somewhat clear-headed. Fourth Elder, purple bamboo flowing mist's beautiful eyes trembled. Only now did she realize that the person who had attacked Nia Tian was actually Xiang Qingshan. Seventh sect leader, get out of the way. I'm going to kill this brat. Xiang Qingshan said coldly as he suppressed his anger. Nia Tian is a member of the seventh sect. What did he do? Why do you want to kill him? Purple bamboo flowing mist frowned and replied coldly. Look at my face. Don't you know what he did? Xiang Qingshan was extremely furious, and he shouted in a stern voice. Purple bamboo flowing mist was stunned for a moment, and she said in surprise, Your face was shaved off by Nia Tian. If it wasn't him, who else could it be? Xiang Qingshan's entire body emitted a violent aura, and his eyes looked like they were about to devour someone. How is this possible? Purple bamboo flowing mist's beautiful eyes flickered, and her delicate face was filled with shock. She knew that Nia Tian was very strong, but he was definitely not strong enough to contend against Xiang Qingshan. She had fought against Nia Tian before, and with his strength, how could he have shaved off Xiang Qingshan's face? I was careless, and fell for this brat's dirty trick. Xiang Qingshan knew what purple bamboo flowing mist was thinking, and he stared at Nia Tian viciously and yelled, Seventh sect leader, get out of my way. I will kill him with my own hands. Purple bamboo flowing mist's expression changed slightly and became even colder. She completely ignored Xiang Qingshan and asked Nia Tian, Nia Tian, what's going on? Nia Tian nodded slightly and told him what had happened. Brat, you're full of bullshit. As soon as he finished, Xiang Qingshan let out a furious roar. Sir Sect Leader, this is what happened. Zizhu Xian can prove that what I said is true. Nia Tian also ignored Xiang Qingshan and said calmly, I believe you. Purple bamboo flowing mist reaction was very calm, and she directly said, The path to heaven is about to open. Let's go. After saying this, she prepared to leave with Nia Tian, completely ignoring Xiang Qingshan. Seventh sect leader, what is the meaning of this? Xiang Qingshan yelled angrily, his eyes burning with anger. He had not expected purple bamboo flowing mist to do this. It was a complete humiliation to him. Fourth Elder, I already know everything, Yemo said. Purple bamboo flowing mist body stiffened, and her eyes flickered as she said, Nia Tian did not do anything wrong from the beginning. On the other hand, the two of you almost killed him. He is a member of the seventh sect, so I won't hold it against you for what happened today. What else do you want? Her voice was calm, but extremely overbearing. Purple bamboo flowing mist reaction was so overbearing. Even Nia Tian, who was standing to the side, was taken aback and confused. He had not expected purple bamboo flowing mist to be so unyielding toward the fourth elder. The crowd was stunned, and they looked at purple bamboo flowing mist with complicated expressions, including surprise, shock, and admiration. Normally, the status of the sect leader of a branch sect was lower than that of the main sect's elder, but purple bamboo flowing mist did not take Xiang Qingshan seriously at all. You won't hold it against me? Xiang Qingshan was stunned. He thought he had misheard, but he quickly reacted and yelled, Seventh sect leader, don't you think you're going too far by shielding your own sect's disciple? Too far? Purple bamboo flowing mist looked at the furious Xiang Qingshan and said calmly, Xiang Qingshan, in my opinion, you're the one who's going too far. I know what kind of person you are. It won't be bad for either of us if we let this matter end here. If you continue to pester me endlessly, don't blame me for turning against you. Nia Tian, let's go. Purple bamboo flowing mist turned around and left with Nia Tian. The crowd was stunned. They were completely dumbfounded. Purple bamboo flowing mist's way of dealing with the enraged Xiang Qingshan was too calm, too overbearing. Purple bamboo flowing mist, you forced me to do this. However, at that moment, Xiang Qingshan let out a strange cry. His body moved, and his aura surged violently. Chapter 2509. Purple bamboo's forbidden power. Xiang Qingshan's body was like a mountain. His body released a violent energy that formed a terrifying palm shadow. He attacked Purple Bamboo Mist and Yetion. Elder Xiang, don't be impulsive. Fifth Elder Chong Kun saw this scene from afar, and his eyes trembled as he cried out in fear. He did not expect things to develop to this stage. Yetion's combat ability was beyond imagination. He had overturned everyone's understanding of martial arts. Xiang Qingshan was almost driven crazy by Yetion. In addition, after Purple Bamboo Mist appeared, her attitude was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. This caused Xiang Qingshan to act recklessly. An elder of the main sect attacked a branch sect leader. This was something that had never happened in the history of the 10,000 Mountains sect. The rules of the sect forbade people from the same sect to kill each other. Xiang Qingshan and Purple Bamboo Mist had high statuses in the sect. They were both higher-ups in the sect. Furthermore, they were in front of so many disciples. This was even more ridiculous. Most importantly, Purple Bamboo Mist's identity was not as simple as the 7th sect leader. She was also the younger sister of the main sect. Many people in the 10,000 Mountains sect knew that Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and Purple Bamboo Mist did not get along with each other. This was also the reason why Purple Bamboo Mist had left the main sect to become a branch sect leader. However, no matter how bad the two of them were, they were still blood-related brothers. They shared the same blood. If Xiang Qingshan really injured or killed Purple Bamboo Mist, the situation would be out of control. The crowd's eyes widened. No one expected Xiang Qingshan to be so crazy that he would attack Purple Bamboo Mist directly. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist suddenly felt a berserk aura coming at her from behind, and her expression darkened. Following this, she unleashed all of her power, and waves of green energy appeared around her, forming gigantic bamboos. The moment the long bamboo appeared, the green energy also turned into a strange purple color. Purple Bamboo Protection. Chong Kun saw this scene from afar. His eyes trembled, and he cried out in surprise. Zizhu Xin's small face also stiffened in an instant, and she was extremely shocked. Boom! In the next moment, the gigantic handprint descended. However, it was blocked by Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's Purple Bamboo Protection, and the violent power disappeared. Xiang Qingshan's figure landed and steadied himself. His bloodless face froze for a moment. His pupils suddenly shrank as he said in shock, "This is the power of the Purple Bamboo family's bloodline." Xiang Qingshan, you're not too stupid. Purple Bamboo Mist's beautiful eyes shone with a cold light as she said in an eerie voice, "However, you shouldn't have attacked me. The power of the Purple Bamboo family's bloodline is not something that can be casually seen. Since you forced me to use my bloodline power, then you must die in a few days." When she said the word die, the killing intent in Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's eyes became extremely intense. Right now, she was releasing the bloodline power of the Purple Bamboo family. This was also the reason why her greenwood attribute power had suddenly turned purple. Yetion could feel Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist's killing intent. He could not help but narrow his gaze, feeling extremely shocked. He had not known Purple Bamboo Current for long, but he had some understanding of the latter. Although Purple Bamboo Current looked extremely cold, she was definitely not the kind of person who would kill indiscriminately. Previously, when she encountered the first sect leader, Kuei Mu-jun, although she was provoked, she did not reveal any killing intent. Facing Xiang Qingshan, Purple Bamboo Current was initially domineering and overbearing. Now, she had displayed such a strong killing intent. This was very strange. After all, even though Kuei Mu-jun was the first sect leader, his status was not as high as Xiang Qingshan's. Why could Purple Bamboo Current tolerate Kuei Mu-jun, but not Xiang Qingshan? You want to kill me? Xiang Qingshan could feel the seemingly solid killing intent in Purple Bamboo Current's eyes. He could not help but shrink back and retreat slightly. Of course, he knew how powerful the Purple Bamboo family's bloodline power was. Even a powerhouse like him could not resist it. "You're dead," Purple Bamboo Current said coldly. The killing intent in her eyes became even more intense. "Seventh sect leader, don't be impulsive." At this moment, Chong Kuen's figure appeared. He said with a slightly nervous expression, "We're all from the same sect. Why can't we discuss this peacefully? Why do we have to make a scene like this?" "Discuss?" Purple Bamboo Current sneered and said in a deep voice, "Wasn't I discussing just now?" But the person who attacked first was Xiang Qingshan. "You!" Xiang Qingshan growled. He was instantly speechless. "Seventh sect leader, let's all calm down. Let's turn a big problem into a small one," Chong Kuen said, with an embarrassed expression when he saw that Purple Bamboo Current's expression was not right. "Humph." Purple Bamboo Current sneered. Her entire body's aura rose. Purple bamboo, forbidden power, surged through her body. She said in a loud voice, "I've already given him the chance to turn a big problem into nothing. It's impossible for him to turn a big problem into nothing now." As soon as she finished speaking, Purple Bamboo Current's body moved. Purple bamboo, forbidden power, surged through her body. Even the space was suppressed. Boom, boom, boom. The forbidden power of the purple bamboo surged in the void and instantly condensed into 3 purple long swords. The purple light flickered, and it was incomparably dazzling. They were thousands of meters long and suddenly moved. They were like 3 giant purple snakes and rushed towards Xiang Qingshan. The purple bamboo forbidden power was extremely terrifying. It was extremely sharp. Even the space trembled slightly under the influence of the wild power. Xiang Qingshan sensed that something was wrong. His eyes trembled. Violent power surged out of his body and surrounded him. It formed a flickering green shield. Rumble, crack, crack, crack. In the next moment, the huge purple swords landed. After a loud rumble, an ear-piercing explosion sound could be heard. The shield around Xiang Qingshan was directly shattered. "Ah!" Xiang Qingshan let out a blood-curdling scream. His body drew a bloody trail in the air. He was sent flying. The scene was extremely tragic. What a powerful force! When the crowd saw this scene, they all exclaimed in shock. They were all dumbfounded. After Purple Bamboo Forbidden Power, Purple Bamboo Current's aura instantly increased by several times. The power that surged through her body was extremely terrifying. What a terrifying purple bamboo, forbidden power. Chong Kuen's eyes slightly trembled. He also did not expect that Purple Bamboo Current's forbidden power would be so terrifying. Xiang Qingshan and Purple Bamboo Current were both at the peak of the immortal state. However, after Purple Bamboo Forbidden Power was activated, Xiang Qingshan was completely crushed by Purple Bamboo Current. Purple Bamboo Current. Puff! Xiang Qingshan's body was sent flying for a few thousand meters. He looked at Purple Bamboo Current with a gloomy expression. He was about to say something when he spurted out a mouthful of blood. Xiang Qingshan died. Purple Bamboo Current sneered. She did not give up. Her body moved, and the Purple Bamboo Forbidden Power around her body condensed into 3 huge purple swords again. They carried a murderous aura and attacked Xiang Qingshan. The crowd gasped when they saw this scene. Their eyes were trembling. No one had expected Purple Bamboo Current to be so overbearing. She was determined to kill Xiang Qingshan. "Brother Chong, save me." Xiang Qingshan could feel the real killing intent. His pupils constricted, and he cried out involuntarily. Chapter 25:10. Chapter 25:10. Impudent attack, kaboom. Crack, crack, crack. High up in the sky, the 3 purple swords collided with the eerie green palm, producing a loud explosion. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, waves of wild energy surged out and spread into the void. At that moment, a strange scene took place. The giant dark green palm actually turned into balls of dark green gas in an instant. Then, it turned into a dark green palm that wrapped around the 3 huge purple swords. Bang, bang, bang. In the next moment, the eerie green palm exerted force, and a terrifying force burst out. The air trembled, and the 3 purple swords shattered into pieces, turning into purple gas and dissipating. What a powerful force! When the crowd saw this scene, they were stunned at first, and then they all cried out in surprise. They did not expect Chang Kuan to be so strong that he could fight against purple bamboo, flowing mist. Purple bamboo, flowing mist steadied herself, and her face darkened. She looked at Chang Kuan with a strange expression. The surprise in her heart was written all over her face. The power that Chang Kuan had used was extremely strange. It seemed to be able to suppress the forbidden force of the purple bamboo. Purple bamboo, flowing mist had always thought that Chang Kuan was a very cunning person. She did not expect his power to be so strange. This guy is so strange. His power seems to contain a terrifying poisonous gas that can weaken and corrode the forbidden force of the purple bamboo. Nie Tian frowned and thought to himself. At that moment, he couldn't help but pay more attention to this guy, called Chang Kuan. Earlier, it was Chang Kuan's mouth that had distorted the truth and slandered Nie Tian. Surprisingly, Chang Kuan's power was terrifying as well. Chang Kuan, what kind of power is that? Purple bamboo, flowing mist's eyes flickered and asked cold. Chang Kuan's lips twitched. He did not answer purple bamboo, flowing mist's question. Instead, he said, "Seventh sect leader, we are all from the same sect. Even if Elder Xiang has offended you, why are you bothering him? Listen to me. Let's each take a step back and let this matter end here. What do you think?" Xiang Qingshan steadied himself and felt uncomfortable hearing Chang Kuan's words. However, he had no choice. Who asked him to be weaker than purple bamboo, flowing mist? I can let go of Xiang Qingshan's matter. However, you must explain your matter clearly. Purple bamboo, flowing mist coldly said, her beautiful eyes releasing a cold glint as she stared at Chang Kuan. Chang Kuan frowned and said with an innocent look, "Seventh sect leader, what did I do to offend you?" Chang Kuan, don't feign ignorance. Just what kind of power did you use just now? Purple bamboo mist asked coldly with a gloomy expression. Chang Kuan laughed coldly and said, "Seventh sect master, what power this elder uses is this elder's own business. It shouldn't have anything to do with you. Don't tell me that I have to tell you what martial arts this elder cultivates." As Chang Kuan's voice fell, he immediately received the support of the crowd. The seventh sect master is too much. The fifth clan elder's power is stronger than hers, yet she wants him to say what kind of power he used. How can there be such logic in this world? The seventh sect master dares to be so insolent because she is the sect master's younger sister. The fifth clan elder did the right thing. She wanted to suppress the seventh sect master's arrogance. The crowd discussed loudly. Purple bamboo, flowing mist heard everything, but she did not care at all. She continued to stare at Chang Kuan and said cold, "Chang Kuan, if you don't say what kind of power you used, don't even think about leaving here today." What? Seventh sect master wants to kill this elder as well? Chang Kuan laughed coldly and said with a gloomy expression, "If you don't say it, I don't mind killing you." Purple bamboo, flowing mist laughed cold, and the aura around her body rose again. She released an even more berserk purple bamboo, forbidden power. Chang Kuan laughed coldly again. He looked at purple bamboo, flowing mist with disdain, and said, "Seventh sect master, forgive me for being blunt. You don't have the ability to kill this elder." Arrogant. Purple bamboo, flowing mist laughed coldly. She moved, and the purple bamboo, forbidden power around her body surged like a tidal wave. It actually condensed into countless purple sharp blades around her body. Those sharp blades were not big. They were only a few meters long. They looked like sharpened bamboo and were very sharp. It was as if they could tear through anything. Boom! The next moment, the countless purple bamboo sharp blades moved. Like a rain of arrows, they covered the sky and the earth and rushed towards Chang Kuan. Purple bamboo, flowing mist was very skilled in using the purple bamboo, forbidden power. In her hands, the purple bamboo, forbidden power's power was fully displayed. You overestimate yourself. Facing the sky full of purple bamboo sharp blades, Chang Kuan was not afraid in the slightest. He laughed coldly, and a dark green aura appeared around his body. He suddenly raised his palm and slapped it out. Immediately, a huge dark green palm appeared. It was like a mountain, and a terrifying pressure was released. Even the sky and earth trembled. The dark green palm's aura was boundless. It arrived with a loud bang. Everywhere it passed, the purple sharp blades were shattered and turned into purple smoke. Roar! The dark green palm suddenly descended. At that moment, it suddenly scattered to the side. Then, it instantly condensed into a huge dark green beast in the sky. It raised its head and let out a berserk roar. What's going on? Seeing this scene, the crowd was all dumbfounded. They all cried out in surprise. What exactly was the dark green power that Tranquil was using? Why could he directly change his attack in midair? This was too strange. At that moment, Tian sensed danger and couldn't help but cry out, "Watch out!" When that ferocious dark green beast appeared, the color of the sky changed. The clear sky became a strange dark green color. If purple bamboo flowing mist was hit by the dark green beast, even if she didn't die, she would definitely be heavily injured. But at that moment, Tian could only worry. He was not Changquin's opponent at all. Even if he attacked now, he would only be cannon fodder. Stop! At that moment of life and death, a low roar suddenly came from the sky. Boom! Then, a terrifying force descended from the sky and condensed into a giant green sword that fell from the sky. Rumble! The huge green sword suddenly descended. With extreme accuracy, it directly pierced through the dark green beast's body. Roar! The dark green beast endured the intense pain and raised its head to the sky. It looked extremely miserable. Bang! In the next instant, the huge green sword suddenly moved. A majestic power bloomed, and the dark green beast's body suddenly collapsed. It turned into rolling green smoke and dissipated. What a powerful power! Seeing this, Tian's eyes slightly trembled. He exclaimed in his heart and then looked at the sky. In the sky, a figure in green stood there. Traces of green power flowed around his body. Although his aura was restrained, it was difficult to conceal his terrifying aura. Chapter 25:11. Protect her, Lord Sect Leader. When the crowd saw the green-robed figure, their eyes trembled and they exclaimed in unison. The figure in green was none other than the sect leader of the 10,000 Mountains, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. Sect leader. Chang Kuan and Xiang Qingshan exclaimed in shock when they saw Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. They lowered their heads slightly. They had to be respectful in front of Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. You. Purple Bamboo Mist looked at Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. His lips twitched slightly, but he did not say anything else. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7, are you all right? Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 moved to Purple Bamboo Wolf 7's side. He was extremely nervous, and his eyes were filled with concern. However, Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist remained indifferent. She merely shook her head. Chang Kuan, Xiang Qingshan, what's going on? Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 looked at Chang Kuan and Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and asked cold. Sect leader, this is just a small misunderstanding. Chang Kuan bowed slightly and told Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 the truth. However, he omitted many details and did not mention the green chi that he had used. After hearing Chang Kuan's words, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 could not help but frown. He then turned to look at Tian and said in a deep voice, "All of this happened because of you?" Tian nodded slightly, neither servile nor overbearing. Sort of. Chang Kuan's description of the conflict between Tian, Xiang Yiru, and the others was only slightly exaggerated. Although it was far from the truth, it wasn't too far-fetched. Furthermore, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 did not refute him at all. Hence, Tian did not say anything. Sect leader, everything was just a joke between the younger generation. I didn't expect 7th sect leader to take it seriously. That's why you saw what happened just now. Fortunately, sect leader came in time and nothing serious happened. Chang Kuan stepped forward and said when he saw that Tian and the rest did not explain anything. This guy was very smart. His words were flawless and no one could refute him. He purposely downplayed the conflict between Tian and Xiang Yiru and pushed all the blame onto Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. Lulan, looks like your temper hasn't changed. You're still as fiery as ever. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 frowned slightly. He looked at Purple Bamboo Lulan and sighed in his heart. He said, "It seems that you still hold a grudge against Muhong Lu. You attacked the two elders because you wanted to show off to me." This was what Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 was thinking, but he did not say it out loud. Obviously, he believed Chong Koen's words. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist simply stood there, not saying a single word. In fact, she wasn't even willing to exchange a single word with Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. "All right, let's end this matter here," Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 said with a sigh when he saw Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist silence. "Nye Tian, let's go," Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist said to Nye Tian with a gloomy expression. Nye Tian nodded and turned to leave. "Wait a moment." At that moment, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 suddenly spoke. He looked at Nye Tian and asked, "Your name is Nye Tian, right?" "Yes." Nye Tian's body froze. He looked at Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and nodded. "Some time ago, you saved Purple Bamboo Xian's life. Is that true?" Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 looked at Nye Tian with a calm expression. "It's nothing." Nye Tian smiled and nodded. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 nodded. His expression changed as if he had noticed something. He asked, "Did you really slice off the face of the fourth elder?" Nye Tian glanced at Xiang Qingshan and nodded. "You're a late-stage paramount god, yet you managed to slice off the face of a peak god-state expert. Just as the third elder said, you're a rare genius." After confirming this, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled and said, "Nye Tian, are you willing to come to the main sect?" Nye Tian's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 to ask such a question directly. "Main sect? You shouldn't be asking me this question. You should be asking the 7th sect leader," Nye Tian said with a smile. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 smiled and didn't say anything else. After that, Nye Tian left with Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. After a while, the sect leaders of the various subsects returned. "Sect leader, where did you go?" Nye Tian asked curiously. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist hadn't been around all this time. "Take this." Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist nodded and took out 8 tokens. She handed them to Nye Tian and said, "Give them to them." Nye Tian took the tokens and gave Jun Ouching and the others 1 each. He still had 2 tokens in his hand. He could feel that there was a sealing power in the tokens. He asked curiously, "Sect leader, what kind of token is this? Why is there a sealing power in the tokens?" "Absorb the sealing power within the command medallion right now," Purple Bamboo Mist said, not bothering to explain anything to Nye Tian. Nye Tian frowned. He carefully felt the sealing power in the tokens. After confirming that it wasn't a threat, he relaxed. Next, Nye Tian and the other participants of the path to heaven absorbed the sealing power in the tokens. "Nye Tian, the sealing power you've absorbed comes from the Heaven Ascension Ward. This sealing power can allow you to stay in the path to heaven for an hour." Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist explained after seeing that the 7 of them had absorbed the sealing power. "Path to heaven?" Nye Tian was stunned. He didn't know what Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist was talking about. "There's no need to rush. You'll understand when the path to heaven opens." Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist didn't explain too much. Nye Tian smiled helplessly. He didn't ask too much. After all, the path to heaven was about to open. All the mysteries would be revealed soon. Auntie, at that moment, Zizhu Xian suddenly appeared beside Nye Tian and the others. She looked like she was in a difficult position. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist reaction was very cold. She only glanced at Zizhu Xian and didn't say anything. "Miss Zizhu, what's the matter?" Nye Tian asked when he saw Zizhu Xian's troubled expression. "Nye Tian, are there only 7 people from the 7th sect who are participating in the path to the heavens?" Zizhu Xin asked weakly, a conflicted expression on her face. "Yes." Nye Tian nodded. He could already guess what Zizhu Xian wanted to do. "You only have 1 path to heaven left. Give it to me." Zizhu Xian's eyes flickered. She couldn't hide the excitement in her eyes. "You want to participate in the path to heaven?" Nye Tian asked with a frown. Zizhu Xian nodded. She then looked at Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist. She knew that if purple bamboo flowing mist didn't agree, Nyetian wouldn't be able to give her the path to heaven token. Nyetian looked at purple bamboo flowing mist and waited for her to make a decision. Zizhu Xin really wanted to participate in the path to heaven, but her father, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7, didn't let her. Therefore, she secretly came to the seventh sect. She wanted to participate in the path to heaven as a disciple of the seventh sect. Purple Bamboo, flowing mist frowned. After a long time, she looked at Nyetian and said, "Protect her." Chapter 25:12. The path to heaven. Nyetian smiled when he saw that Purple Bamboo Mist had agreed. He handed the path to heaven token to Zizhu Xin. He could tell that although Purple Bamboo Mist seemed cold to Zizhu Xin on the surface, she was actually very concerned about her. Zizhu Xin took the Heaven Ascension token and hurriedly absorbed the power of the seal. Following this, the crowd waited patiently for the path to heaven to open. Everyone stood on the huge square and waited patiently. Nyetian was very curious. Could it be that the path to the heavens would open in this square? He didn't even know what the so-called path to heaven was. Why hasn't the road to heaven opened yet? Just at this moment, someone among the cultivators in the plaza grew anxious and asked suspiciously, "Why are you in such a hurry? The path to heaven only opens once every 10,000 years. How could it open so easily?" Someone said with a faint smile. His eyes were filled with excitement. "I heard that the path to heaven has 9 levels of heavenly stairs. Only those who manage to climb the heavenly stairs will be able to enter the real world of heaven. I'm really curious to see what the 9 levels of heavenly stairs are like," someone said excitedly. 9 levels of heavenly stairs. What's that? Nyetian frowned. He was even more curious now. Jun Aoqing's eyes flickered as well. She said, "It seems like the path to heaven is really mysterious." Nyetian nodded slightly. However, he suddenly sensed something and his expression changed slightly. He looked toward the center of the square. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud explosion came from the center of the plaza. Following this, the ground of the square cracked neatly, as if it had been sliced by an invisible giant sword. The cracks were very neat. The path to heaven is about to open. Upon seeing this, the crowd's eyes trembled as they exclaimed in unison. At this moment, everyone's gazes were firmly fixed on the center of the square. Boom! Following this, a tremendous force surged out from the huge crack on the square. It instantly condensed into a huge sealing force and released rays of light that surged into space. Almost in an instant, the boundless light spread out like ripples in all directions, instantly enveloping the space within hundreds of thousands of meters. Immediately, the crowd was enveloped by the light. They felt a mysterious power circulating around their bodies, giving them a very comfortable feeling. What a magical power! Nyetian's heart trembled as he felt a strange fluctuation in the air. Waves of soft energy were like invisible hands, constantly caressing his body, causing all the pores on his body to open up and absorb the energy in this space. The others had the same feeling. Everyone's faces were rippling with joy. Obviously, they were very happy. Look quickly. The path to the heavens has appeared. Right at this moment, someone in the crowd exclaimed with surprise, and he pointed at the center of the square. As far as the eye could see, a towering Tao platform had appeared in the center of the square. It was formed from 7 colored light and emanated a mysterious and ancient power. Is this the path to the heavens? The crowd was stunned by the scene before them. Their expressions were blank as they spoke in a daze. Under the crowd's gaze, the towering Tao platform seemed to have a life of its own as it rapidly rose into the sky. At the same time, the light on the Tao platform became even more dazzling. The space within hundreds of thousands of meters was filled with 7 colored light. In almost the blink of an eye, the Tao platform had already risen hundreds of thousands of meters into the sky. It was like a giant tree standing between the heavens and the earth, reaching into the clouds. It was impossible to see where it ended. Is this the path to the heavens? The crowd was completely dumbfounded. They were shocked by the scene before them, and their expressions were intoxicated. No one had expected the path to ascend to the heavens to be so stunning and beautiful. Boom! However, at this moment, the Tao platform suddenly rumbled, as if it had already risen to the end. Boom! Following this, a boundless majestic force appeared and was released from the Tao platform, spreading in all directions. Everyone who is not participating in the path to the heavens, leave the ascending heaven plaza. At this moment, a powerful voice was heard. It was Purple Bamboo Wolf 7's voice. The crowd on the plaza immediately reacted and retreated out of the plaza. However, Niet Tion and the others did not move at all. They stood in the same place. Buzz! In the next instant, the majestic force spread to the edge of the plaza and stopped abruptly. A huge barrier was formed. Standing in the middle of the ward, Niet Tion was shaken to the core by waves of enormous pressure. He finally understood why the people who were participating in the path to the heavens had to absorb the sealing force in the ascending heaven token. The sealing force was used to resist the pressure of the ascending heaven barrier. The barrier that enveloped the entire ascending heaven plaza was the ascending heaven barrier. Niet Tion and the others were able to resist the pressure of the ascending heaven barrier by absorbing the sealing force. However, they did not have much time. They only had an hour. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 had told him that the sealing force would only allow them to last for an hour inside the ascending heaven barrier. Meanwhile, Niet Tion and the others stared at the path to the heavens, not knowing what to do. It was obvious that the path to the heavens was split into 9 layers, with each layer having around 1,000 steps. The first 8 layers of the path to the heavens could be seen with the naked eye, but the 9th layer extended all the way to the top of the clouds, with no end in sight. Everyone who is participating in the path to the heavens, listen up. At the moment when the crowd was feeling confused, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7's voice sounded once again. He said, "I will only say this once. You all must remember this clearly, as it is extremely important for you to ascend to the heavens. The Tao platform you see in front of you is the Tao platform of the path to heaven. The Tao platform has a total of 9 levels, and each level has a total of 1,111 steps. Altogether, there are 9,999 steps. The first 3 steps are known as the human stairs, the middle 3 steps are known as the earth stairs, and the highest 3 steps are known as the heaven stairs. Those who are able to reach the 3rd step of the human stairs are considered to have obtained the approval of the path to the heavens and are qualified to enter it. If you do not have the ability to reach the 3rd step of the human stairs, do not force yourself. Otherwise, you will be punished by the path to the heavens. After entering the path to the heavens, you will find yourself in a different world. You can cultivate there for a period of time. As for the duration of your cultivation, it will be determined by the position you enter the path to the heavens. If you enter the human stairs, you can cultivate for 3 days. If you enter the earth stairs, you can cultivate for 6 days. If you enter the heaven stairs, you can cultivate for 9 days. Once the cultivation time is over, you will be automatically sent out of the path to the heavens. That's all I have to say. Do you remember it? After saying this, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 glanced at the cultivators who were taking part in the path to the heavens. Yes, everyone replied in unison, their eyes burning with passion as they looked at the path to the heavens. All right, please begin the path to the heavens. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 nodded his head slightly and said in a loud voice, his eyes filled with anticipation. He was very excited about the path to the heavens. There were 2 people he was looking forward to the most. One was his disciple, Su Qianfan, and the other was Niet Tion. Chapter 25:13. The 9-story platform. The moment Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 finished his words, the cultivators in the plaza immediately went into an uproar. Many people's eyes flickered with excitement, obviously eager to give it a try. Let me go first. At that instant, the first voice was heard, followed by the appearance of a cultivator in green robes. His aura surged as his figure shot toward the path to heaven like an arrow released from a bow. Everyone's eyes flickered as they looked at the person. The cultivator in green robes was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in midair. With a stomp of his feet, he directly landed on the third floor. This guy was thinking of skipping the first and second floors and directly setting foot on the third floor. As long as he could land on the third floor, he would be able to enter the path to heaven. However, just as he was about to land, he suddenly felt something causing his figure to pause for a moment before he was sent flying backward and landed heavily on the ground like a heavy lead bullet. His body was covered in blood and flesh, giving him a miserable appearance. The crowd could not help but gasp upon seeing this. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Most people did not see clearly what force had struck the cultivator in green robes, causing him to be sent flying backward. Such a powerful barrier. Yet Tion frowned as he exclaimed in his heart. He had long discovered that the entire path to heaven was enveloped by an unusually powerful barrier. The person just now had been repelled by the barrier. The lowest step of the path to heavenly ascension had the weakest spirit power. This ensured that all cultivators could only enter the path to heavenly ascension from the first step. Anyone who tried to take advantage of the situation would suffer a rebound from the spirit formation barrier. At that moment, outside the plaza, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7, a group of elders and the sect leaders of the branch sect stood together. They shook their heads with a smile when they saw the cultivator who was severely injured by the barrier. Every time the path to heaven was opened, there would always be people who recklessly charged in recklessly, and such people were always the first to be eliminated. The path to heaven is not only a test of a martial artist's talent, but also a test of a martial artist's perseverance. I wonder how many people will be able to enter the path to heaven this time and become the heaven's chosen one. A branch sect leader sighed and said, "In the past, when the path to heaven was opened, at least a few dozen people were able to enter. However, I'm afraid that it will be difficult to become a heaven's chosen one." An elder shook his head with a smile and said, "Rumor has it that those who can step on the sky stairway will trigger the resonance of the heavens. I wonder if it's true?" Another branch sect leader frowned and said, "It's not easy to activate heaven resonance. Only a martial artist who has reached the third step of the heaven stairway can activate it." Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 shook his head and said, "Ever since the 10,000 Weight Mountain sect was established, there have been countless attempts to ascend to the heaven stairway. However, the number of people who manage to ascend to the first level of the heaven stairway can be counted on one hand, and none of them manage to ascend to the third level." Heaven's resonance was a legend of the path to heaven. However, up until now, no one in the 10,000 Weight Mountain sect had ever triggered heaven's resonance. Even Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 himself had only made it to the first level of the heaven stairway. Only a martial artist who made it to the third level of the heaven stairway, which was the 9th level of the sky ascending platform, could trigger heaven's resonance. Meanwhile, in the plaza, due to the failure of the first person, everyone was fearful and did not dare to attempt it recklessly. After a while, after everyone had calmed down, someone could not hold it in any longer and arrived outside the sky ascending platform. Compared to the previous person, this person was obviously much smarter. He entered from the lowest level of the sky ascending platform and easily set foot on the first step. He landed. The crowd's hearts sank when they saw the person's feet on the step, and they were relieved. Following that, the person climbed up step by step. Every step of the heaven ascending Tao platform had a total of 1,111 steps. The person's speed was not slow, and he soon arrived at the second level of the human stairway. As he set foot on the second level, he could clearly feel the pressure in the space becoming much stronger. "Let's go too." At that moment, the crowd could no longer hold it in when they saw the person had already set foot on the second step. They all moved toward the sky ascending platform. In almost an instant, hundreds of martial artists had set foot on the sky ascending platform. "Master Nyetian, let's go too," Yu Qingqi said with a fiery gaze. He was a little anxious when he saw this scene. "There's no rush." Nyetian was not in a rush. He smiled calmly and prepared to observe for a while longer. After all, he could last an hour in the sky ascending formation. This time was more than enough for him. At that moment, A cry of agony came from the sky ascending platform. A martial artist who was about to set foot on the third step was suddenly struck by a force and was sent flying out of the platform. What kind of force is this? Why can't I dodge it? The person landed on the ground with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. His face was as pale as a sheet. He had felt a terrifying force approaching him. It seemed to be coming from all directions, preventing him from dodging it. He could only endure it, which was why he was struck and sent flying out of the platform. He was just one step away from setting foot on the third step and entering the sky ascending path. One could imagine the frustration in his heart. H, A-H, A-H. Following that, cries of agony sounded out continuously. Many figures were struck in the same way and sent flying out of the platform. Most of them were sent flying when they were about to set foot on the third step. Of course, there were some who were too weak and were eliminated on the second step. However, those who could be selected by the sex to participate in the sky ascending path could be said to be genius martial artists. Very few of them could set foot on the third step. This undoubtedly showed how difficult it was to ascend the sky ascending platform. Although those martial artists who were eliminated were unwilling, they did not dare to try a second time. They could feel the impact of that force and knew that it was impossible to dodge. Hence, it was useless no matter how many times they tried. Look, someone has set foot on the third step. At this moment, someone exclaimed excitedly. Nietion's eyes narrowed. Indeed, he saw a figure appear on the third step of the sky ascending platform. So it's him. In the next moment, Nietion saw the figure clearly and could not help but smile faintly. The first person to set foot on the third step was not unfamiliar to Nietion at all. It was Xiang Yiru, whom he had shaved off his face. Xiang Yiru was already a half-step peak expert at such a young age. His talent was obviously not weak. It was not surprising that he was able to set foot on the third step. Outside the square, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 was not very excited when he saw the scene on the sky ascending platform. Every time the sky ascending path was opened, many people could set foot on the third step. After all, the test of the human stairs was still very weak. The real difficult tests were the earth stairs and the sky stairs. Following that, more and more martial artists set foot on the third step. There were more than 10 people who were climbing the third step with difficulty, advancing toward the earth stairs. At that moment, someone exclaimed and pointed at a figure on the sky ascending platform. Look, that guy is crazy. How is he so fast? Nietion's eyes narrowed slightly and locked onto the figure. After that person entered the sky ascending platform, his speed was extremely fast. He stepped on the sky stairs as if he was walking on flat ground. In the blink of an eye, he had directly reached the third step. Then, under the watchful eyes of countless people, the figure climbed to the fourth step, the fifth step, and soon set foot on the sixth step. It was not until he entered the sixth step that his speed slowed down slightly, as if he felt a slight pressure. Wow, Senior Brother Su is so powerful. Zizhu Xian looked at the figure and could not help but exclaim. She was extremely excited. The martial artist who quickly set foot on the sixth step was Su Qianfan. Su Qianfan, not bad indeed. Nietion smiled faintly and twitched the corner of his mouth. Looks like it's time for me to make a move. Chapter 25:14. Kuemu Jingxun Nietion had been observing the sky ascending platform for a long time, so he was not in a hurry. He was confident that with his perseverance and talent, he could at least reach the heaven stairway. Su Qianfan quickly stepped onto the third step, which was the sixth step of the platform, and attracted everyone's attention. Su Qianfan's talent is indeed terrifying. The first 5 steps were not difficult for him at all. Even the sixth step was very easy for him. A branch sect leader looked at Su Qianfan from afar and said with a face full of amazement, "That's right. Back then, I had only stepped foot into the 4th level. The pressure on the sky ascending platform is very terrifying. It is not something that ordinary people can withstand," another branch sect leader said in surprise. Most of the branch sect leaders and elders had participated in the path to heaven, so they were very clear about the terrifying pressure on the sky ascending platform. Su Qianfan was able to reach the 6th step in such a short time, which showed how strong his talent was. Qianfan's talent is indeed very strong. He did not disappoint me, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 said. At this moment, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 also spoke. He looked at Su Qianfan with a burning gaze, his eyes full of anticipation. With Su Qianfan's current speed and condition, he could at least reach the first step of the Heaven Stairway, or even the second step. If his perseverance was strong enough, he might be able to reach the third step of the Heaven Stairway. With Su Qianfan's current performance, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was the #1 genius of the 10,000 Mountain sect in a million years. Yu Qingqi, if you guys want to go up, you can go now, Nie Tian said to Yu Qingqi and the others in the sky ascending platform with a smile. All right, Yu Qingqi could not help but agree. He then said to Yu Zhuxuang, Brother Jiu, let's go together. Yes. Yu Zhuxuang nodded and followed Yu Qingqi, rushing toward the sky ascending platform in a flash. Yu Zhuxuang has 2 bloodline martial bodies at the same time. His talent is not below Su Qianfan's, so he should be able to reach the Heaven Stairway, Nie Tian said to himself as he looked at Yu Zhuxuang. Although Yu Wuxuang's mind was not fully developed, his talent was extremely terrifying. He had the body of Earth Rock and the divine body of All Wood. These 2 bloodline martial bodies were extremely powerful. Fat Cat commented that Yu Ji was unparalleled. If he could possess the intelligence of a normal person, he could even break through the boundaries of the realms and ascend to the Saint Realm. Brother Nie Tian, we're going too. When the other 3 cultivators from the 7th sect saw the Yu brothers charging over, they couldn't hold back any longer and turned to Nie Tian. Nie Tian nodded slightly, but he did not move. Jun Aoqing had been standing beside Nie Tian the whole time. Since the latter didn't move, she didn't move either. Zizhuxin was able to keep her composure and did not move either. Oh my god, look! Su Qianfan has set foot on the stairway. At this moment, a wave of exclamations resounded in the square, and countless gazes converged onto Su Qianfan with shock and adoration. At this moment, Su Qianfan's figure had actually set foot on the 7th level, reaching the position of the celestial stairway. Su Qianfan is so powerful, he actually set foot on the sky stairway. As expected of a genius, no wonder he became a disciple of Lord Sect Leader. Look at Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. Those 2 are also stopped at the 4th level. It would be difficult for them to even ascend to the 5th level. The martial artists who had been eliminated exclaimed, and at the same time, they did not forget to belittle Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng. Su Qianfan, Xiang Yiru, and Chang Yufeng. These 3 were known as the top 5 geniuses. Unfortunately, Xiang Yiru and Chang Yufeng were a far cry from Su Qianfan. Impressive! It seems that you can set foot on the 8th level. Nie Tian looked at Su Qianfan and said with a faint smile, Nie Tian, I'm going too. At this moment, Zizhuxin finally could not hold back anymore. Her beautiful eyes sparkled, and there was a hint of excitement in her eyes. Nie Tian nodded and did not say much. XINR. Outside the square, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 suddenly saw Zizhuxin's figure, and his face darkened slightly. He did not allow Zizhuxin to participate in the path to heaven this time. So why did she still appear? Miss Clan Lady. When the others saw Zizhuxin, they all exclaimed in surprise. Then they showed great interest, wanting to see which level Zizhuxin would be able to reach. If Zizhuxin could not even reach the 3rd level, then Purple Bamboo Wolf 7, the main sect lord, would be embarrassed. What followed was a relatively calm moment. Most of the people were eliminated, and about 1/10 of the people could set foot on the 3rd level and above. There were even fewer people who could set foot on the 4th level and above. Who is that big guy? He can actually set foot on the 6th level. At this moment, the people's eyes gradually focused on a huge figure. It was Yu Wuxuang. Originally, everyone thought that Su Qianfan was the only one who could set foot on the 6th level and above this time. They did not expect that there would be an unfamiliar figure who would set foot on the 6th level and above. I didn't expect that this big guy's talent to be so high. Purple Bamboo Flowing Mist thought to herself as she watched from afar. From the beginning to the end, her focus had been on Nie Tian, and she had completely ignored the existence of Yuji Wushuang. She did not expect that this seemingly silly big guy would actually be able to surprise her. Nie Tian, are you still not going to move? Purple bamboo flowing mist could not help but turn her gaze to Nie Tian, and she said with a slight frown. More than half an hour had passed, and there was not much time left. However, Nie Tian was still standing in the same place, and this made purple bamboo flowing mist a little anxious. At this moment, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 also noticed that Nie Tian was still standing in the same place, and he also felt that it was strange in his heart. Why hasn't he moved yet? At this moment, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 also noticed that Nie Tian was still standing in the same place, and he also felt that it was strange in his heart. At this moment, in the ascending heaven square, Jun Aoqing was also a little anxious, and she asked in a low voice, Nie Tian, shall we start? Aoqing, look at that guy. The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched, and his eyes were locked on a figure in the distance. It's him. When Jun Aoqing saw that figure, her beautiful eyes trembled, and she exclaimed in surprise, Kue Mu Jingchen. Nie Tian nodded slightly, and called out that person's name. At this moment, the person he was paying attention to was Kue Mu Jingchen. Kue Mu Jingchen was the son of the first sect master, Kue Mu Jun. Previously, Nie Tian almost had a battle with Kue Mu Jingchen. At that time, Nie Tian faintly felt that Kue Mu Jingchen was very unusual, as if there was an extremely strange power in the latter's body, and even Nie Tian could not see through it. At this time, in the entire ascending heaven square, only 3 figures had not moved, and they were Nie Tian, Jun Aoqing, and Kue Mu Jingchen. Nie Tian, this kid is a bit strange. You have to be careful. At this time, Fat Cat's voice sounded, reminding Nie Tian. Nie Tian nodded slightly, and his gaze towards Kue Mu Jingchen was even more strange. Look, he made a move. At this moment, Jun Aoqing's beautiful eyes trembled, and she suddenly exclaimed. Just as her voice fell, Kue Mu Jingchen's figure really moved, like a stream of light, extremely fast. And at the next moment, a shocking scene happened. Kue Mu Jingchen stepped on the ascending heaven square, and his figure was as fast as lightning. Chapter 25:15. Chapter 25:15. Chapter 25:15 Genius Competition. The scene that suddenly happened on the Heaven Ascension Dao platform stunned everyone. Everyone's expression was dull, stiff, and shocked. Countless eyes widened, looking at the Sky Ascension platform in disbelief. Kue Mu Jingchen's speed was too fast, as if the Sky Ascension platform had no effect on him. Stepping on the platform was like walking on flat ground. How is this possible? How can this guy's speed be so fast? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Who is he? Why haven't I seen him before? He's not from a main sect. Is he from the branch sect? He seems to be from the first sect, called Kue Mu Jingchen, the son of the first sect master. The crowd reacted in disgust and shock. The horror in their hearts was written on their faces. The talent shown by Kue Mu Jingchen was so amazing that people couldn't help but be shocked. At this time, even Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and others were completely shocked. Su Qianfan's speed was already fast enough, but in front of Kue Mu Jingchen, it was like the speed of a tortoise. At this time, people knew that Kue Mu Jingchen, who had been hiding, was the most talented person. Give me a shock. Kue Mu Jun looked at Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and the others. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he laughed sinisterly in his heart. But the more shocking thing is yet to come. Just when everyone was shocked, Kue Mu Jingchen's figure had surpassed Su Qianfan. He took a steady step out, and his feet directly landed on the second step of the heaven stairway. Wham! At this moment, the Sky Ascension platform shook slightly, and then a muffled sound came out. A mighty force appeared, extremely strange, and pressed towards Kue Mu Jingchen from all directions. Kue Mu Jingchen's figure was like a mountain, standing there, and his whole body seemed to grow in the same place, motionless. Steady, steady, steady. The crowd saw this scene. Their voices trembled, and their expressions were even more shocked. Kuei Mu Jingchen was too terrifying. With one step, he actually stabilized on the second step of the heaven stairway. Next, as long as he could walk through the second step of the heaven stairway and set foot on the third step of the heaven stairway, he could trigger the legendary resonance of heaven. This guy, how could it? Su Qianfan looked up at Kuei Mu Jingchen's figure. His handsome face stiffened, and he couldn't speak. He initially thought that his innate talent was already the strongest in the 10,000-layer mountain sect, but he did not expect Kuei Mu Jingchen's innate talent to be so much higher than his. The second level of the heaven stairway. Outside the Sky Ascension Square, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7's face sank slightly when he saw Kuei Mu Jingchen fall on the second level of the heaven stairway. Kuei Mu Jingchen set foot on the second level of the heaven stairway, and he was only one level away from the third level of the heaven stairway that triggered the resonance of heaven. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 hoped that someone could trigger heaven's resonance, but he definitely did not want the person to be from the Kuei Mu family. Everyone in the 10,000-weight mountain sect knew that the Purple Bamboo family and the Kuei Mu family were opposing families. There was a strong competitive relationship between the two families. Even though the Purple Bamboo Wolf had become the master of the main sect, it was still wary of the Kuei Mu family. Moreover, everyone knew that the Kuei Mu army had coveted the position of sect master for a long time. If Kuei Mu Jingchen really triggered heaven's resonance, then the reputation of the Kuei Mu family in the entire 10,000-weight mountain sect would undoubtedly be greatly improved. This was not a good thing for the Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. Nie Tian, are you still not going to make a move? On the other side, Purple Bamboo Mist looked at Nie Tian with her beautiful eyes flickering slightly as she murmured. Now that Su Qianfan could no longer be compared with Kuei Mu Jingchen, the only person who had a chance to compete with Kuei Mu Jingchen was Nie Tian. As soon as Purple Bamboo Mist's voice fell, Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing moved at the same time. The two were very fast and instantly landed on the first level of the heaven stairway. The moment he stepped on the platform, Nie Tian felt an invisible force appear and shroud his whole body, making him unable to dodge and could only endure it. However, this invisible pressure was not strong, so both he and Jun Aoqing could withstand it. Go! Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing looked at each other and spat out a word at the same time. Then, they directly rushed to the top. The crowd looked at the figures of Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing and frowned. They said in shock, their speed is so fast. Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing's speed was indeed very fast. In the blink of an eye, they had already set foot on the fourth level. However, their speed was still slower than Kuei Mu Jingchen's. Everyone's eyes kept flickering as if they were looking forward to something. Next, Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing were very stable and soon set foot on the seventh level, which was the first level of the heaven stairway. They have also caught up. When Su Qianfan saw that Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing were already standing on the same level as him, he could not help but frown in surprise. He had originally thought that his talent was the strongest on this path to heaven. However, he did not expect that hidden geniuses would appear one after another. Kid, it turns out to be you. At this moment, Kuei Mu Jingchen looked down and stared at Nie Tian with a pair of deep eyes. He said coldly, "Your talent is not bad, but it's impossible for you to catch up with me." After that, Kuei Mu Jingchen took a step forward and continued to climb up the stairs. After entering the 8th level, his speed slowed down a lot, but it was still very stable, rising step by step. In the face of Kuei Mu Jingchen's provocation, Nie Tian just smiled and did not say much. At this moment, all the onlookers were stunned. This time, the heaven stairway was really beyond everyone's expectations. There were so many geniuses appearing at once. At this moment on the heaven stairway, there were 5 most eye-catching figures. Kuei Mu Jingchen on the 8th level, Su Qianfan, Yuji Wushuang, Nie Tian, and Jun Aoqing on the 7th level. These 5 people had all set foot on the heaven stairway, which was simply impossible in the previous heaven stairway. In the previous heaven stairway, it was already good enough for a few martial artists to set foot on the earth stairway. But this time, there were as many as 5 martial artists who set foot on the heaven stairway alone. However, among these 5 people, 3 were from the 7th sect: Nie Tian, Jun Aoqing, and Yuji Wushuang. Next, the figures of Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing continued to climb up. Soon, the two surpassed Su Qianfan and Yuji Wushuang at the same time and came to the top of the 7th level. The 8th level. Nie Tian smiled slightly, and his expression was still relaxed. But at this time, Jun Aoqing was slightly panting. Compared to Nie Tian, Jun Aoqing, who had the nether ghost vein, was still a little less talented. "Aoqing, how are you?" Nie Tian was a little worried about Jun Aoqing and couldn't help but ask. At this moment, they were on the heaven stairway. If they reached the limit of their talent, they must not force it. Otherwise, the pressure on the heaven stairway was not a joke. "I'm fine." Jun Aoqing wiped the sweat on her forehead and nodded slightly. Nie Tian sensed the state of Jun Aoqing and was relieved to make sure that the latter was fine. Then the two took a step at the same time and landed on the 8th level. Chapter 25:16. Chapter 25:16. Chapter 25:16. Strange Power Boom. The terrifying pressure of the ascending heaven platform fell, and Nie Tian suddenly felt the terrible power, causing his body to shake slightly. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately, there was a crisp sound in his body, which was caused by the compression of his bones. What a strong pressure! Nie Tian frowned slightly. He felt an invisible force enveloping his body and squeezing the inside of his body, as if it wanted to crush his whole body into meat powder. However, his martial body was extremely strong. He forcefully resisted the power of the pressure and stood steadily. Beside Nie Tian, Jun Aoqing's little face was extremely painful, but she finally stood still. "Stop!" When the crowd saw the scene on the ascending heaven platform, their eyes trembled violently, and they couldn't help but shout. Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing stood on the 8th step at the same time, which was a very rare scene. Together with Kuei Mu Jingchen before, there were a total of 3 martial artists who set foot on the 8th step this time, which was really shocking. Outside the ascending heaven square, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7's gloomy face eased a little, but he was still very nervous and didn't dare to relax. Although Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing climbed the 8th step at the same time, it was very difficult for them, far from as easy as Kuei Mu Jingchen. However, at this moment, Kuei Mu Jingchen's face was very ugly. A pair of eyes stared at Nie Tian like a vicious wolf, and he said solemnly, "It turns out that this brat's talent is so strong. No wonder Kuei Mu Rei was not his opponent before." Steadily on the 8th step, the figures of Nie Tian and Jun Aoqing did not stop, but continued to climb up. Stepping on the 8th step, Nie Tian felt a very strong pressure. The omnipresent pressure made him unable to avoid it. He could only bear it. At this time, the figure of Kuei Mu Jingchen had reached the top of the 8th step, only 1 step away from setting foot on the 9th step. Is this guy's talent really so strong? Nie Tian looked at Kuei Mu Jingchen's figure, and he couldn't help but frown. Kuei Mu Jingchen seemed to be walking very easily, which made Nie Tian feel very strange. In his opinion, Kuei Mu Jingchen's talent should not be so strong. Look, Kuei Mu Jingchen is about to set foot on the 9th floor, and he is about to trigger the resonance of heaven. The crowd looked at Kuei Mu Jingchen's figure, and their blood couldn't help but boil. Heaven's resonance, the legendary heaven's resonance, what would it be like? The 10,000-weight mountain sect had been established for more than 1,000,000 years, but there had never been anyone who could resonate with the heavens. Therefore, in everyone's eyes, heaven's resonance was like a distant legend. They had only heard of it, but had never seen it before. Heaven Ascension Platform. My next step is to make this world tremble for me. At this moment, Kuei Mu Jingchen's voice resounded on the Heaven Ascension Platform. Boom! The next moment, his figure moved, and he took a step forward. The entire Heaven Ascension Platform suddenly shook violently, and a violent and boundless force appeared, turning into boundless pressure that pressed on Kuei Mu Jingchen. At this moment, Kuei Mu Jingchen's body released a layer of halo that enveloped his whole body. The next moment, a strange scene happened. The endless pressure fell on Koimu Jingshan's body, but it was absorbed by the strange halo around him and disappeared. At the same time, the Heaven Ascension platform returned to calmness, and Koimu Jingshan's figure stood firmly on the ninth step. At this moment, the halo around his body suddenly dispersed, and it turned into a violent, wild beast phantom, dissipating in the space. His body released an aura like that of heaven and earth, as if he had integrated with this world and become the ruler of this world. Stop, stop. Koimu Jingshan has set foot on the ninth floor. The eyes of the crowd trembled, and the shock in their hearts couldn't be any more. No one thought that Koimu Jingshan could set foot on the ninth floor so easily. The ninth level was something that could trigger the resonance of the heavens. At this instant, everyone's expressions froze, and they stared blankly at the Heaven Ascension platform, as if they were anticipating something. But to everyone's disappointment, nothing happened. The Heaven Ascension platform was silent, and there was nothing unusual. What's going on? Koimu Jingshan was surprised, and his eyes trembled violently. His face was very ugly, like a fierce beast that was about to go crazy. He set foot on the ninth floor. Why didn't he trigger Heaven Resonance? Hey, where's Heaven Resonance? Why didn't it happen? At this time, everyone was also shocked, not knowing what was going on in front of them. When a martial artist set foot on the third step of the Heaven Stairway, he could trigger Heaven Resonance of the Heaven Ascension platform. But now, why was it quiet? The legendary Heaven Resonance didn't happen? At this time, Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 and others were also stunned. Was a record of the 10,000 weight mountain sect about the Heaven Ascension platform wrong? Master, what's going on? Someone couldn't help but ask Purple Bamboo Wolf 7. Purple Bamboo Wolf 7 was also stunned, and he shook his head and said, I don't know what's going on either. Does a martial artist have to set foot on the last step of the ninth floor? Maybe so. Everyone really couldn't think of other possibilities, and they nodded. At the same time, on the Heaven Ascension platform, Nietian's eyes were fixed on Koimu Jingshan, and his eyes were very puzzled. He was very close to Koimu Jingshan, and he saw the scene just now very clearly. When the powerful pressure released by the platform appeared, it was actually absorbed by a layer of halo around Koimu Jingshan's body. This was too strange. What kind of power was that layer of halo around Koimu Jingshan? How could it be so powerful that it could absorb the pressure of the Heaven Ascension platform? Nietian believed that if it wasn't for this layer of halo, Koimu Jingshan would not be able to set foot on the ninth floor. Nietian, what's wrong with you? Jun Ouching saw Nietian's puzzled face, and she couldn't help but ask, I'm fine. Let's continue to go up. Nietian smiled faintly and didn't express the doubts in his heart. Fat Cat didn't speak at this time, and she probably didn't know what power Koimu Jingshan used. Since I can't trigger the resonance of heaven on the first step of the ninth floor, then I will continue to go up. At this moment, Koimu Jingshan calmed down, and his eyes were extremely firm. His figure moved, and he continued to climb up. But this time, his speed was much slower. The figures of Nietian and Jun Ouching also walked up, gradually narrowing the gap between them and Koimu Jingshan. When the crowd saw these three figures moving again, their eyes became scorching, still looking forward to the moment when the resonance of heaven was triggered. Soon, the figures of Nietian and Jun Ouching came to the top of the 8th floor. The two glanced at each other and stepped on the 9th floor at the same time. Boom! At the instant their figures landed, the Ascension Dao platform rumbled and let out a terrifying rumble. It was like the roar of the heavens.